I'm in search of conversation guests. If you are interested or know someone that might be interested, please contact me directly. Thank you. Let's jump into wine. Okay, so you got your certified sommelier. Hopefully, I'm saying it right. Sommelier.
That's correct. Yeah.
Sommelier.
Yeah, nice job.
Certified sommelier from the
Court of Master Sommeliers.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's a certifying body that's international, but we have our own court here in the United States that is the largest one in the world. And so they're the certifying body. You kind of do your own independent study. You pick up as many wine books as you can. You go to as many tastings as you can. And then they have what's called the level 1 course, or the introductory. And it's kind of, it covers the world of wine, which is, a mile wide, but only about 1 inch deep. And so the way I like to think of the introductory level is kind of you just gain some familiarity. You don't have to know it. You don't have to master it. You don't have to teach it to others. You don't have to do any of these things. You just have to become a little bit familiar. And so with your saturation of this information over time, it becomes less and less daunting. You know more of it that you had to learn. And then eventually you take the test and they're like, hey, you passed that threshold. You're finally certified. And so I did that.
When you talk to me, when you explain some of the things that you know about wine, and when I tell you about my tongue, like when I drink wine and eat steak, like something's going on my tongue. The way you and then even just from that, when you explain that, I think it was the tannins?
That's exactly right.
And then you talk about the wine. So now you're saying that the certified sommelier was a wide, but not very deep, but super wide information. Now what I was going to say is, it seems like you know a lot. So is that from the schooling or your own personal time?
So I've been in hospitality for 20 years. I've opened 3 or 4 restaurants in my career. And when you do that, you go through intensive, like the product training that you have to go through. And so I got a lot of good, opening a new restaurant wine training. So you're familiar with it. And so that's all I mean, is that kind of the introductory level just will introduce you to the world of wine, because there is so much. It's quite vast. But that introductory level is just going an inch deep. When you go to certified, let's talk about maybe a foot deep.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So then the third level, you go to advanced, you may be like, maybe 3 feet deep. And if you actually go for master level, let's say you're going to dig your own grave and it is 6 feet deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm somewhere in knowledge in between certified and advanced.
Okay.
I am kind of a wine nerdy geek, and so I love to read the books. I love to study the details. I love to know the science of things. And I have an education background. That's actually what I went to college for, to become a 7th grade history teacher. Oh. And so to being able to teach others about this concept is rewarding for me. And then also the history of wine is really the study of European history. You really can't think of one without the other, and how they kind of develop together. And so they fall hand in hand. And so it was kind of a natural jump from just, learning history onto a certain segment that was in combination with the hospitality industry. And just knowing about how wine and food work together, how they grew up around each other culturally, it can increase your, just your pleasurability of life if you can understand where these things came from, and get a basis of understanding about how they're supposed to be, and if you have a good example of that, and then just knowing how to introduce that to others and to be able to share it with them, because really wine is about sharing. Wine is definitely about sharing. I think that's why they size the bottles the way they do, so that you can't drink an entire bottle all yourself. I can, but that's not necessarily advised. But it's meant to share with others, because you want to be able to share the experience with others and be able to talk about it. Because wine and food is a communal thing. We get together and break bread together, and there's nothing that is more pleasurable than coming together and being able to chat about our day, and to maybe grease the wheels with a little bit of alcohol and help kind of inebriation, kind of loosens the things a little bit and get everybody excited.
Let's let's go a little bit general and then super advanced later. Let's start with the general, like maybe some tips on a if someone's just trying their first wine, a glass of wine at a restaurant, some tips there. And then let's even talk about like wine festivals and wine tasting tours too. So however you want to start and all that.
All right. Well, something I think is important to look at for a consumer is to understand the pricing of wine, like how wine is priced. And so you first have to realize that it starts in the vineyard itself. You have to pay the employees to look over the grapes in the vineyard. Then you have to pay people in which to pick these grapes and bring them into the winery. Then you have to pay more people in which to handle these grapes. You have to pay a winemaker. You have to pay a bottler. You have to pay somebody to do the capsules. There's a lot of hands involved. Then you have to have a salesman that goes through distributorships and was going to sell that and is going to distribute it to different states. Then the distributorship will going to sell it to retailers or to restaurants, and then they have to sell it to consumers. And each step in that chain has a little bit of a person taking some of that for their own pocket, right? So if your initial reaction when you open up a wine list is, oh my God, this is expensive, you have to realize there's a lot of hands involved. And so looking at a wine list, a really good rule of thumb for, let's say, wine by the glass is that the restaurant has to take a risk by opening this bottle just to sell it by the piece. That is, if I'm going to open one bottle so you can drink one glass, I take the risk of not selling the other 3 glasses, and that might spoil. So a standard rule of thumb for restaurant markup for wines by the glass is to charge a glass for the cost of the bottle that the restaurant has, right? So if it's $15 for my cost for the bottle, it's going to be $15 for your cost for that glass. So then if you look at that standard markup for the bottle, that bottle will be $60 if we do the 4 glasses, all priced evenly. If you were to purchase a buy the bottle option that's not available by the glass, the restaurant doesn't have to take that risk of spoilage. So I can pass along a discount to you because I'm not taking additional risk. So let's say I buy a $20 bottle of wine for the restaurant, and let's say a lower tier markup standard for restaurant bottles is 3 times. So I might sell a $20 bottle for $60 versus a $15 bottle that I'm selling for $60. So if you are going to buy a bottle of wine, it is much more beneficial in which to buy one not from the wine by the glass list. A lot of people will make that mistake. So there's one little value tip. I think that's good to kind of look at it that way. When you get into the higher end bottles, the markup is even less, but because it's a percentage of the bottle total, the restaurant makes more by marking up less. So let's say, okay, I have a $100 bottle of wine that I bought. And so I'm going to charge, let's say, just a 2 times markup. So it'd be like for $200 on the list. So that's a less percentage markup. But on that one instance of a sale, the restaurant makes $100 on the $100 investment. So it's more per instant, but less in markup, right? So you manage percentage versus the instant. And so what I really would say to the average consumer is to explore, have as much fun as you can, and to try different things, and to realize that every once in a while, you should just go, a little harder than you would normally. Maybe it's your birthday, maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's something a little special, but you should treat yourself. And even if you think that you're incapable to decide, like I hear this all the time, oh, well, I don't have very sophisticated taste buds or a palate, so I don't really know a good wine versus a bad wine. Well, we all have the exact same taste buds. We all have the exact same, like the tools that are ingrained within our human body in which to be able to determine things. You know if something is delicious. I know if something's delicious to me. And so that's the end all be all. There isn't a hierarchy of, well, I have this knowledge, so therefore my brain is able to associate deliciousness more appropriately than you. That's hogwash. That's hogwash. If something's delicious, you're going to be like, man, that's really good. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. And that's a hard thing because it's an expensive thing to get into because all those hands are involved. So for the average consumer that wants an entry level to jump into this idea, and they might have something that really isn't delicious for them, they're not going to think, hey, let me double up and go harder next time so I can get burned even more, right? It's always kind of the, well, then wine's not for me. I'm not into wine. But I'm a big believer that there is a wine for everyone, for everyone. And it's, especially as you grow and age, your palate changes. When you're a child, you like sweet things. And when you get older, you like more bitter things. And so when you are young, you might have liked a candy bar, but when you're older, you might like a mushroom. And it's certainly not the case that those are flipped. But the same thing happens with wine. And so you might try something in your 20s and you're like, I'm not really into that. Well, then maybe try it again in your 40s or your 50s and you might love it. So it's important to keep an open mind and to check back on your palate every once in a while to go back to that kind of thing. As far as wine tastings and wine festivals go, that's a really great way to try a bunch of different wines and hear the different ways in which wines are made in the same setting. I think the best way to appreciate wine is to go and visit a wine region and a winery itself. You can ask as many questions about how it's made. You can go into the cellar, you can go into the barrel room, you can go into the vineyards, you can see these places. And anytime that we connect our olfactory and our taste sensations to what we experience, it amplifies that level. So that is, if you're tasting a wine in the vineyard, it's always better than if you're tasting it at home. And then if you go and visit that vineyard and you've been there and you take a case home with you, when you taste that wine again later, your emotions will evoke being in that vineyard like you were before. And you'll have I'd say an enhanced level of appreciation with that wine because you were there, because you've met the people, you smelled the air that was there, really, really elevates your experience. So I think, going to wine festivals and wine tastings are extremely important, especially for novice consumers that are just trying to get their foot in the door and don't really know a Merlot from a Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, you need to taste, 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 of these in which to really get a sense of this one's middle of the road, this one is this side, this one is this side of the spectrum. And if you only taste that one, you'll just never know that there are all these others in that range.
So I've been to a wine festival before. I haven't been to on a wine tour. I'm imagining the wine festival. For me, it was like going from stand to stand. They were like trying to get you drunk, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
yeah.
I mean, they weren't even like, if the wine glass was this, they weren't feeling, they're like, sometimes they're filling half the damn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what's your suggestion on how to get the most out of a festival? Now, the thing that when I went with 8 people, I think 7 of them got pretty plastered.
Yeah. So, okay.
So that's getting a lot out of a festival. But if
so it all bears down to your goals, right? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And we as professionals, the term we use is expectorate, which means to spit. And so to not swallow the wine, you just want to kind of swish it around your mouth, get a sense of the structure, maybe the tannins that you pick up, and then spit it in a little bucket that they have next to the table. And it's not exactly the cleanest thing, or you feel like you're being the really nice thing to do. But if you want to be able to get the most out of your experience and not getting shit-faced or trashed, then you're gonna have to spit. You're gonna have to spit. Yeah. But make sure you eat something. Make sure you eat something is very, very important. Eating something is very important. Eating something. So there's a valve in your stomach that will open in which to empty the stomach and start digestion. When you eat, that valve closes and keeps everything in your stomach as it starts to process it. And so if you eat something and then drink at the same time, all of that sits in your stomach and starts to break down there without going straight to your digestive tract. So that's why if you drink on an empty stomach, you get drunk really quick, where if you have something to eat, you're actually able to maintain it.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's really important to eat something as well. Yeah. And of course, drink water,
Yeah. On the tannins, so you explained it to me, and I still probably don't remember it 100%. How would you describe tannins? And that's from the grape skin that causes your is that kind of your tongue and your almost your cheeks to kind of pucker
Yep.
up. Is that correct?
Yeah. This is astringency. So, so the tannins are a form of acidic structure. They act as a preservative in which to retain the wine's freshness and keep it from turning into vinegar. And these things are actually very, very small and fine grained. And as these things combine, they polymerize into larger compounds, and it becomes very softer and rounder. So this can happen with the collection of more tannins together over time in solution. So think of if you're going to age a bottle of wine, these tannins are collecting slowly, and they're going to fall out of the solution once when they form stronger bonds and become a solid in comparison to the solution. So they fall out. Then the wine is less tannic. The other way of doing it is you're trying to get this polymerize on your tongue and on your cheeks, and the way to do that is to introduce richness. So I think I'm getting a little bit ahead. I want to step back a little bit about tannins. So,
Okay.
So tannins come from grape skins, grape seeds, as well as the stems that may be included, as well as a little bit of oak barrel aging. So if the wine ages in oak, that also might pick up some tannins as well. The best way for you to experience this is to buy some grapes in the store and just peel off the skins and chew on just the skins, and you'll get the tannic thing very, very quickly.
Oh, would that be the same? So that magical feeling I say when I eat steak and have red wine, I could get if I go get grapes, peel off the skin, chew it, and then eat a piece of red meat. It would do the same. I see your
Yes, but it doesn't have the rest of the components in the wine that also help with the salivation, and it's kind of like winemakers are always in search of balance, right? These must be the most enlightened people ever, but they're always looking for the balance. And a really good rule of thumb to think about it is like making lemonade. If lemonade is mostly water, just like wine is. Wine is like 85% water, but the rest of it is sugar and acid, right? So sugar and the lemon juice. Grapes are the same way. The sugar just gets transformed into alcohol, and the acidity is still within the grape itself. And so having enough acidity to balance out the sweetness or the alcohol, this imbalance makes a delicious, refreshing beverage that's very pleasurable. So we're always trying to find balance. When you think about a grape bunch that grows, the really small one in the bunch is super sour. This is full with acidity, and it doesn't have much sugar in which to balance that acidity. So it tastes really tart. As grapes grow, they trade in that acidity for sugar. And if, let's say, it rains before the harvest, those grapes might swell with water, and then they become kind of bland. But if it's a small berry that's concentrated sugar and concentrated acidity, that's a delicious, jam-packed berry that's full of flavor. And that's what you want, is a low juice to skin ratio that's full with a ton of flavor. If it's really big with water, it's going to be kind of bland, doesn't have enough flavor, and might need a little manipulation. So that's one little thing. But people say, well, it rained before harvest, and that's a bad thing. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So rain does really affect the grapes and how they swell in the finished product. Because you could have a perfect growing season, everything is great, the entire spring, the summer, and then just bam, you get a thunderstorm a week before harvest, the entire thing is,
wow,
all down. Yeah, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we produce wine every year. Actually, it's actually a miracle that Mother Nature allows us to do it. So back to tannins. Let's see. The way I like to think about richness and tannins is kind of like if you had some butter that you melted and you let on the counter overnight and it's solidified. The same thing happens on your tongue. So let's say you have a bite of a ribeye steak that has a lot of marbling or richness or fat, and that fat starts to coat your palate. And so then you have a sip of ice water. What happens to all that fat on your taste buds? It's now turned to solidify, right? So it's covering your taste buds. So when you go to have your next bite of food, that food now has to fight with that solidified layer of fat that's covering up your taste buds, and you don't get to taste the food like you once did that first bite. You don't really notice because you're like, well, I'm hungry and this is dinner and blah, blah, blah. I got a pretty date, whatever. There's a lot of things going on. You don't really notice. But if you have that tannic structure from that wine, that actually breaks apart that richness and softens the tannins, helps them to polymerize, washes away that richness. So your next bite of food is just as good as that first bite, which we all go, yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday, my wife was saying, my wife's not really into alcohol. I got the two bottles got two bottles. One that I messed up picked the wrong one that you suggested. I thought it was another one, but either way, we ended up trying it and both bottles. And she mentioned that when she had the steak, drank the wine, she felt like it really fully cleansed, like it cleared her palate. And she said she could eat another piece of steak like as if it's just a brand new bite. So that's kind of what you said. It felt, exactly what
That's
what you said.
exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. Wine is made for food. And a lot of people, they don't understand this. We have the unfortunate advantage of being very disconnected from agriculture. Like we have only come in this part of the post-industrial industrialization age, but let's say 150 years before now, even 100 years ago, for 5,000 years before that, everybody was farmers. Everybody grew stuff. Everybody made things. Everybody was living off the land. So they were connected very intimately with the things that they grow, and then the culture that in the place where they live. That all came up together. And so there's a simple saying I like, but I think it works out really well, is that the foods that grow together, they go together. So do you think about, what's the food that grew up around the Italian provinces? They go with the Italian wines in those same regions because they grew up together. You know what I mean? Everything was kind of designed as they were thinking about, well, let's make this better. And it happened over 1,000 or 2,000 years. These things happen slowly. If you think about the Burgundy region in France, this was established by the Cistercian monks at around 900 AD. And for a good 500 years, all they did was work the church. You could pray. You worked the vineyard. You drank wine. That's what it is. What's your favorite thing to do? And all those things are to do, right? I would enjoy drinking wine every day. That'd be my favorite thing to do. So the Burgundy region has had these monks figure out the individual vineyards of this place for 1,000 years as they slowly prayed and figured out all the best places in which to make wine. We kind of have a disconnect because we don't grow things. We're not making things in our own cellars. We're not producing it ourselves. So this has been lost in thinking that, well, I grew up drinking a soda. That's my beverage of choice. It's sweet. It's refreshing. It's carbonated. That's where I get that. Like I wash my richness on my palate away with that soda. So that's how I think about it, right? The carbonation is the way that I wash away all the morsels and everything that's on my palate. So when you have wine, you don't really have a reference point in which to compare it to. It's like, this is an alcoholic beverage. So I've had vodka, I've had a beer. This is alcohol. I don't get it, right? So it's very easy to be like, I'm lost in this. So, but thankfully, we can have faith that for thousands of years, they did this successfully and it works and it's beautiful. And if you just spend a little bit of time first exploring, then investigating, and then applying your techniques to what you've learned, you can be everybody's favorite dinner guest. You can make sure you get invited to every party. You can make sure that you are like the number one on everybody's what to drink with what and what to have with that. You're going to enjoy your life so much more because, I don't know, we have to eat 3 meals a day, right? We might as well enjoy them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, there's just been so many things that have really benefited me in my life by understanding these simple things. And I think with anything in life that's at a professional level of understanding, the first task looks so daunting. There's just no way you're ever going to figure it out. It's in 5 or 6 different languages. There's all these different grapes, different regions. How will we ever figure it out, right? So it's daunting at first, but just spend a little bit of your time and eventually the clouds dissipate, things start to make sense, and then you're in control of your own destiny. You know.
So walk me through. Say someone who's an inexperienced wine drinker and they're going to a restaurant. They're going to order a glass or a bottle. Now, you basically said you probably don't want to order a glass. So, what would a beginner? What are some of the beginner thoughts that maybe even customers that you run into? What are they asking you, and what should they avoid, and what should they do?
So the first thing I think is really really crucial is that you have to come correct. And what I mean by this is that the people there at the establishment you're going to are there to help you. And so if you can be super humble about where you're at, your experience, and just be honest, they should be able to help you on whatever your next ladder rung will be. There's so many people that come in and act like they know it all, and then with their actions reveal that they make so many mistakes that all they had to do was ask a couple questions and you could have helped them out big time and they could have increased their pleasurability.
Wow.
So I work at the Golden Steer Steakhouse here in Las Vegas. I am the wine director and sommelier there. And I would say 99% of guests that are wine lovers that want to come in and enjoy a nice bottle of wine, these are wine lovers. These are people who get wine, who enjoy wine, who do it all the time, right? And I would say 99% of people do this. They come in and they go, all right, it's a steakhouse. I'm going to order a steak. I need a big bottle of red wine, and that's it. Right. So I'll make my wine selection. I got it. I'm good. I can give up that. I give up that task now. I don't have to think about it anymore. I'm done. Right. But then you have an appetizer. You have a salad course. I've had things in between. And your big red wine was made for that big steak that you're going to have to finish the meal. But everything you've had in the beginning, it's an absolute train wreck. Right?
Yeah.
There's a thing called the pallet fatigue. And it kind of, you want to start light and build up to rich. And if you do this, your palate doesn't get tired. But if you start with really rich food, you really can't eat a lot because you're like, wow, this is really rich. And my palate really isn't adjusted to it yet. So I can't eat a lot. And so it's that concept. You think like, I'm going to order this big, rich Cabernet and I'm good to go. But what do? You may have a sip of it in the beginning. Then you eat your appetizer. Then you eat your salad. And then you eat your steak. And you haven't been drinking and eating the whole time. So now that you've got your steak, you eat the whole steak. And then you look up and go, oh, I have a full glass of wine. God, I didn't even drink it. And you miss that song and dance of having a little sip and having a little taste back and forth. And these are wine lovers, right? These are people that get it, right? People that like understand, you know?
Yeah.
But it's easier for like I would say like for digestion and for health and for not getting too full and for really enjoying yourself if you are able to kind of go light to rich and to think about if I'm going to enjoy some oysters in the beginning of my meal, I might have something that's crisp and refreshing and light and is kind of mineral driven, which will highlight that kind of, like the minerality of the oyster shells will bring that out. So those things work together in tandem. Then you might have a salad course and have a different wine that will go with that. And there's reasons why that will work as well. And so when you finally get to your steak course and you're used to having a little bit of wine, a little bit of food, your stomach is as well. And so it's now become adjusted to the things that you're putting into your system. And it's now going, okay, cool. I'm organizing. I am bubble. I'm figuring out how to be able to figure all this out without making you feel like, oh, I need to go to bed right now. Oh my God. If you do it right, like the French are known for having 4-hour meals all the time. And people go, how is that possible? I couldn't sit around for 4 hours and have dinner. That's crazy. Well, if you understand that there's actually a reason for this and they're able to do that, there's a reason for it. And then what do they say? The Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest ones, you can kind of live forever. So I don't know. I feel
so on that,
yeah.
That's on that, or would you suggest? So that means 99% of the people. I think you said 99% of the people that kind of make that mistake. It's almost better that even if they think that they know, they should at least be humble and come in and say, maybe this is their. Should they ask about? They're going to get probably this entree, this salad, and this steak, and then they should ask their server and or actually at your restaurant, would they talk to you directly, or are they talking to a waiter, or how's that work out?
I would say either or. A good wine director and sommelier will train their staff in which to handle the basic to late intermediary questions. Um, so any really qualified server should be able to make recommendations about for what to have with what food.
Hmm.
They might not be able to describe it at length, but
Yeah.
they can at least make the proper recommendation.
Yeah.
And that's about, I think that's the part about, trying to come correct by just saying, hey, listen, I know that this great red is going to go great with this steak, but am I missing something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something that I'm missing here? Because, I know that's going to be good. And I love this stuff too. Is there anything I can do to make this better? You know what I mean? And that is, that's so few and far between. And I'm so happy when people do that.
Yeah.
Because like, we're there to help you. I want you to have a good experience. I want you to go, wow, this was the most amazing thing ever. I can't wait to come back. Right. So we're there to help you out. And there's so often people feel like I'm a salesman and I'm there to extract the most money from your wallet that I can. And
I'll tell you from my own
yeah,
experience with messaging with you. I on it like when you gave me so much information on the like what I think it was 2 years ago. I asked you for some advice on buying I think about 3 or 4 different bottles. I was going to a friend's house. We were just gonna have a meal, and I think I told you we were doing I don't remember correctly, but I think it was like a white pasta, and then you described to me to grab something. But as you described everything to me, um, it really felt like you really loved your craft. I think that's something I'm seeing and all through these talks that I'm doing with a lot of people. I did one with a dental hygienist recently. She just loves her craft. Like she could talk like hours about teeth, but you could tell she really cares. Like she actually stopped working with the dentist because he had unethical ways of upcharging guests. Um, I had a physical therapist. He's like looking at holistically, not only if he had one client that had a hip pain, and he found out that the person was a heavy gamer at home and wasn't standing enough. So he actually suggested for them, hey, your hip problem is if you actually walk a little bit more, it would actually alleviate your hip. Don't sit down because you think you have a hip. Well, don't sit down more because you have that hip problems. Just walk more and it'll actually help. So these people are so passionate. That's how I feel about you. Like, I mean, even when I asked you for, I think one ball, I was telling you about that magical thing with the red steak and red wine, and I'm trying to recapture it. I don't know if my tongue is getting aged, and I have yet to have that feeling for like 10 years now. It's been about 10 years to have that magical feeling of your lips and your cheeks just pucker up. You get that meat and it just opens up, and then just doing that dance. It's amazing, but I have yet to have it for 10 years.
did that happen last night with the Nebbiolo? Did you get some of
The
that
so the Nebbiolo was probably the closest that I've gotten, but
back?
it didn't quite get me there. It was like yeah, it had the best mixture with the steak. I had a ribeye, I had a New York steak, and then I also screwed up a T-bone. We had a bunch of steaks yesterday.
You just said, man, you just tried them all. That's good. That's fun. That's great.
Yeah,
No, that's
yeah,
great. That's a great way to do it too. Yeah, I
yeah,
think a steak tasting against wine tasting is a really great way to figure out which steak goes better with which wine. So yeah,
yeah.
great way to do it.
If you do you have any suggestions for if people are doing it at home? Any suggestions on just go out and buy different wines, or how would you suggest somebody that doesn't even know how to enter this, how to start?
Sure. So I
And
think
actually, sorry, I don't know if I cut you off earlier too. So whatever you.
that's fine. I don't even know that. I think it was a good thing to transition for me, so it worked out pretty good.
Okay.
Um, I think one thing to realize too is that wine grapes are grown between the 30th degree and 50th degree of the parallels of the Earth. So there's the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And as you get closer to the equator, it's warmer, of course, and there's more sunshine. And what we talked about before, like small berries and big berries growing up. Um, so if you're in a hot climate, um, those grapes are going to have no problem swelling, getting lots of sugar. That sugar will convert to more alcohol and be a bit richer. So basically, I want to I want to introduce the concept of a cool climate wine and a hot climate wine. And let's say a warm climate wine will be softer, richer. It's going to feel like more weight on the palate, a richer kind of wine. But it's also going to feel a bit flabbier because it doesn't have that acidity to help balance it out. If we think about the inverse, a cool climate wine that has a really tough time struggling to get the grapes to ripen fully, they have to pick their grapes kind of underripe. So those always become much more sharper. They're very hard on the palate, very crisp. And so you want to experience one from each area. And it's helpful if you can try the same variety. So if you get like an Oregon Chardonnay versus a Paso Robles, Chardonnay, because of the climates, the quality of the grapes are much different. And so just to taste the same grape, right, it's the same test, but in a different climate, you can get a kind of a sense of those two things. And I think that's really important for just a novice consumer. If they don't know anything, you can kind of get a sense of what to expect if you at least know your geography. If you want to pick something from Germany versus like the island of Sicily or Spain, you can very easily know that Spain's a very hot climate. Germany's a very cold climate for grape growing. So the two differences is important to just kind of get a sense of that. That's just one level. The other part is that the grapes, the wines in the New World, and when we talk about New World versus Old World, we mean the Old World is the countries that have grown up with like wine growing for thousands of years. The New World is all the countries that have just been making wine in the last, let's say, 300 years, right? New World wine regions make wines that are named after the grapes that they're made from. Sometimes they give them fun names, kind of like how beer is named now. It just has a fun name. It doesn't really mean anything, but it might be called, like 8 Years in the Desert, which is Oren Swift's new Zinfandel project. When you go to the Old World countries, these wines are named after the places that they come from. And so they have grown up around these areas, and there are certifying bodies in these areas to ensure the typicity of the wines that come from that area. So that is, there's a group of Chianti professionals that taste every Chianti before Chianti can be released onto the market, so that they ensure that this Chianti is of quality and gets the stamp, right? The stamp of approval. So there's a little bit more of a guarantee of quality in Old World wines, just to know that if you have this certain level, that it's got to be of that standard. So that's kind of safe for consumers to at least know quality is there, even though you don't really have a reference point because it's the name of a place you've never been to or heard of before. Like it's hard to remember Barolo. What is Barolo? I have no idea. I've never been to Barolo. What is that? But if you start to dig in a little deeper, you can know that these are some of the most world-class Nebbiolo wines in the entire world. So it's a little daunting again, but if you start to, start broad and then start to work your way in. And with wine quality is exactly that way. If we look about like the wines that come from California, the majority of the bulk wine production comes from the Central Valley. And they make a ton of it. But these grapes, by law in California, can really come from anywhere in the state. And even like small percentages, like up to 5%, can come from out of state and still be labeled as California wine. When you go a little bit, let's say, deeper, and you want to say like one of the 5 the major subregions in California, so let's call the Central Coast or the Northern Coast. If you get a wine that's called North Coast, you know that there are grapes that are picked from anywhere in the coast. And like if you think about the winemaker trying to find balance, he might try to find some grapes in the north that are on the more tart side and some in the south that are more on the ripe side, and blend them together to get that finished, the finished balanced product that they're looking for. So that can be kind of cool, and then a nice way to save value as well. Not to say that they'll do that, but it's something they can do. Let's dig a little bit deeper, and you go to what's called an AVA. And so these are American viticultural areas. So like one would be the Napa Valley, right? The Napa Valley. And then within Napa, there are 16 sub-AVAs that break up the Napa Valley into different segments, right? These are like Oakville, this is Coombsville, this is Napa itself, this is Calistoga, this is St. Helena, this is Yountville. These are some of the big names you might have heard of before. So when you get a wine that is labeled as Napa Valley from Oakville, you know that all those grapes must come from this sub-AVA within the Napa Valley. As you get more focused, the quality raises. Let's say within Oakville, right, this area, you have a single vineyard, and all the grapes come from that single vineyard. So now this wine is called Oakville X Vineyard. You know, let's say like the Pizzoni Vineyard or whatever. The person who is growing those grapes in that vineyard and that can name it that vineyard is taking great pride to produce that wine. So they're going to give everything they have in which to make sure that vineyard performs the best that it can. So that wine that comes from that single vineyard is going to be smaller production. There's only so much that comes from the vineyard. That's it. They might maybe make 1 or 2 barrels, which might turn into 100 cases of wine, and that's it. So if you want it, you're going to have to pay for it, right? Because somebody else is going to maybe bet a little higher from you. So in the New World, we kind of name things the grape, but you can have a determination of quality as well, like the Old World, if you just know as you get more and more singular into what the name of the wine is called, right? Is it a California wine? Is it a North Coast wine? Is it Napa Valley wine? Is it Oakville wine? Is it Oakville wine from X Vineyard, right? Each one of those is a hierarchy that gets higher quality. The Old World does the same thing, but you just have to know that they name it from the place and you not know what the grapes inside are. You just have to know that that's the ones they use. So it's a little bit more confusing to figure out what you're tasting. But I think once you delve a little bit deeper, the Old World system is a little bit better because then you know the typicity of quality. You can always know that, you know, let's say in Burgundy, there's a village called Gevrey-Chambertin. And the Emperor Napoleon was famous for saying that life is never rosier than sipping a glass of Chambertin, which is the Grand Cru vineyard within the village of Gevrey-Chambertin. And so, you know, just the deeper you get, the more that you can ensure you have quality. What happens when there's higher quality and not enough not enough supply to meet demand? Price goes up, right? So remember that when you look at a wine list and something is $300, $400, $500, $1,000, $3,000, right? That doesn't necessarily mean the quality inside the bottle is that much higher. It starts to mean that there's only so much of it to go around, and there's a bunch of these people who really love this wine, so they're going to pay for that. And if you're not willing, then you're not going to have it. You know, it's like a rare commodity. And for most consumers, let's say for myself, I will not spend less than $30 on a bottle of wine in a retail environment. On a wine list, if it's from a major region that is well known, I won't spend less than $100. But if I know that it's from an unknown region that's kind of up and coming, you can find values there, and you can find them for in the $60 to $80 range, that really perform at least as good or more than the $100 bottle, right? If you look at, like, let's say Napa Valley Cabernet, they are, I think it's like 1.5% of all the wine in California that's produced. It all comes from Napa. So that's a very small percentage. And this is probably the most highly regarded place in all the Napa Valley, in all of California, which to produce wine. If you want to buy an acre in Napa, it's $3.1 million. It takes you 7 years after you've planted your vines in which to bear fruit that is worth making for wine. So you want to buy an acre for $3 million, sit on it for 7 years with no return, Then you're going to finally make your wine. You have to build a winery to get barrels, to hire a winemaker, all this. Then you're finally going to recoup your investment after all of that. So how much do you need to pay for, that bottle of wine to make it worthwhile venture? Pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But you go down to somewhere like, Argentina or Chile, it might be $30,000 for an acre, So you can still find really great values. It just depends on, the power of the dollar in those countries and how much is labor and what their laws are like. So, if you want the creme de la creme, you're going to pay for it, and it's worth it, but you can also find great values the world over, and there's never been a better time to be a wine lover than there is now.
Yeah.
There's so many modern technology tricks that don't break the like there's natural wine, and then there's manufactured wine. There's wine that like, let's say from the Central Valley, that goes into these jug wines, like a Gallo would be, something like this. They're going to manipulate that product to make sure that the finished product is very similar to the one that came the year before. And that's more important for them than to make sure that what they're producing is not going to hurt you. They want to make sure that their brand is safe, so that you pick up one next year and the following year, it tastes exactly the same. Well, grapes don't perform the same every year. So you have to do things to that could be, I don't know, not safe. You're going to add some pesticides or herbicides or maybe enzymes or other things that don't belong in wine, or at least belong in the process naturally. If you're one of those people who are trying to do organic only and try to a little bit more conscious about what you put in your body, then I would definitely say that you want to avoid the cheaper wines. They are manufactured. They're not a natural product. This is not something I recommend to anybody. This is poison, in my opinion. It's poison. I won't even drink that stuff.
And you told me it was like, what was the name of like some of those?
There's Mega Purple and Mega Red.
Can you describe those a little bit more?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a grape sugar concentrate. But it's done in a manufactured way rather than like a natural process way, or like it's not comes from like from good sources of sugar. It's come from manufactured sources of sugar. So it's just a question of like, is that what you want? You know what I mean? It's like if you are going to ask yourself how our food is grown and how it comes to us and who handles it and all those things, if they matter, then we have to ask more questions about each stage of it, not just our food and how it's produced in farms and what those animals eat, because we're going to eat them as well. And that goes into our system and it changes us. The same thing for wine. So what goes into that? Is it something that you want to put into your system as well? And the FDA has very, very high thresholds for things that are are dangerous. And so they might say, yeah, you can have a glass of wine of this. It's not going to hurt you, no problem. But you might not have self-control and you might drink an entire bottle of that stuff. Well, that's actually over the threshold for safety for you, but you didn't know. And there's no warning for that. So you're going to drink this and you go, hey, I love it. It's cheap. It's $5. I'm good. I got drunk. Hey, man, let's do it next weekend. 3 years later, and all of a sudden, I don't know what's going to happen, but you can't find your keys. You can't. Just who knows what could happen? Who knows? But any of that stuff, I just really, I don't recommend. There's a step further than that. That if we really want to talk about natural wine, this is the wine with no additives whatsoever, and wine is actually trying to turn into vinegar, and winemakers historically have lit a small candle of sulfur in the cellar while the wine is fermenting. And with the introduction of that sulfur, it's an antioxidant. And so it will expel oxygen that gets into the fermentation tank. So ensuring that the fermentation can finish and that the wine has been stabilized. Some people think they have a negative reaction to this. They say that they're allergic to sulfites. Well, if you were to examine a piece of dried apricot and a glass of wine, there's like 45,000 times the amount in a piece of dried apricot than there is in a glass of wine. So if you get headaches from a glass of wine because of the sulfites, I challenge people to have a piece of dried fruit. And if that doesn't make you want to kill yourself, then that's not a true statement anymore. Because it's really from you just being dehydrated, you didn't drink enough water, and that, it's just you feel like you have a headache because you're drunk and blah, blah, you're a little dehydrated. But it's not from sulfides. It's not from that sort of thing. I challenge people all the time on that one. Let's see, what else?
For someone like, say, when you mentioned, I'm jumping way back at just a random thought from what you said earlier. If you pick wine on your meal, if you got you got your steak, you got your salad, you may have an appetizer. If I've been trying to slim down my diet lately, and I might probably only have room for kind of like half a steak and then some salad. When you mentioned, was it palate fatigue?
Right.
Will there be a difference if it's just steak and salad and then the wine? Like, is it too little for the tongue, or is there anything to watch out for?
Actually, a really cool thing to do that most people don't think of is that you don't have to commit to a full glass if you have a partner willing to share one with you. So if you only want to have one glass during the evening, and then there's a salad and a steak course, you could say, let's share a glass of Sauvignon Blanc to start, and then let's share a glass of Cabernet for our dinner. And so you have a way to have, a half glass of wine with the first course, and then a half glass of wine with the second course.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of a way to do it. You can kind of make your own tasting menus, like by doing that. I've done that so many times, and it's a little bit more work for the servers because they have to serve twice as many glasses by only actually selling half of those glasses. So it's extra work for them, but it's really it's the best way to do it. If you can just do it a little bit. A really great way too is if you go out for like a party of 4 or a party of 6, and you can really design the experience much more effectively that way, because a bottle of wine will stretch out for 4 or 6 glasses really nicely. So you can have, a chilled seafood course with a bottle of Chablis. Then you can have a nice, like a Caesar salad course with a California Chardonnay. Then you can finally have your steak course, and you can get a nice bottle of Cabernet, and then each thing will help to lead into the next and will help to increase your pleasurability of it all.
What do you think is the most common attribute that people like wine for, just from your experience of so many customers? I mean, some people seem to like wine, and it seems like they don't really know wine that much, but it's all about, fun too. If you enjoy it, then so be it. But what is the when you heard me talk about how steak and red wine just does this magical thing to my tongue? Do you hear other people mention that, or they usually just
actually they have mentioned that. They have mentioned that. So that's actually a really good thing. I would say probably the biggest misconception I get from guests in what they think is quality is a couple of things. One is the legs or the tiers. Have you ever heard of this before?
No.
So if you take wine in your glass and you swirl it and you look upon like the sides of the glass, you can see that alcohol starts to come down slowly, right? Mm-hmm. And so the more alcohol, the longer those tiers, the longer they take to fall down the glass, right? There's more glycerin, there's more texture there's more stickiness. So if there's more alcohol, it takes longer for those tiers to fall down. And so folks will look at those tiers and go, wow, that's a quality wine. Look at those tiers. Look at the legs on that wine. And it really doesn't tell you anything except the perceived alcohol or the richness in the wine. So that's not a determination of quality. That is just an indication of what the wine is. And they really try to associate those things together. And I think that is a common mistake. If you go a little bit further, if you put it on your palate and you feel that texture and that richness, that's another mistaken thing for quality. They think, oh, if it's rich, it must be quality. That's a really good quality. No, the wine just came from a warm climate. It has a lot of alcohol, a lot of glycerin, a lot of texture there. So what I would like to try to introduce folks to is the intensity of flavor, right? How flavorful is this product? And is it more mind-blowing for something that is very elegant and delicate and which to be flavorful? Or do you expect something to be rich and powerful to be very flavorful? Which one is more surprising?
The first.
Right? So when you have something that's delicate, but it's flavor for the roof, whoa, that's crazy. I didn't expect that. And so I like to try to turn guests onto that. Look for flavor intensity within the package that you have, and that is really a good determination of quality. The other one that people kind of look for in wine critics is called the finish or the length. So when you swallow the wine and you still taste it as you breathe out, how long does that taste go for? Is that for 10 seconds? Is it for 15 seconds? 30 seconds? They say really, really good wine can go up for a minute.
Wow.
And yeah. So really high quality wine can go up for a minute. There's a cognac that's very famous called Louis XIII, or also Louis XIII. You may have heard of it before.
Yep.
This cognac is aged for 100 years in the barrel before it's released. There's only been about 5 distillers that have made this since the beginning. And no distiller has ever tasted their own finished product, right? It has to age for more than 100 years. So by the time they started it, they don't get a chance to taste it when it's finished, right?
Yeah.
That cognac, my length for that is like an hour.
Wow.
I taste that cognac for like an hour later. Amazing stuff. Amazing. Incredible. I've had it about 5 or 6 times in my life. It's pretty special. Yeah, really special stuff.
I started, when I drink certain wines, when you open a bottle, you should wait some time. But and from what I'm learning from you, it varies on the type of wine too. I feel like what I try to do is like if I taste, like say if I wait 45 minutes or so, I taste it, and it has like a pretty strong alcohol punch still. That to me, that I think that means I gotta wait like another 30 minutes or an hour or longer. Does that sound right to you? Am I on the wrong track?
I can't really say like a rule of thumb that is. I think there are other variables that could prevent that. So I couldn't say in a vacuum that will work every time, but that it can work.
Yeah.
During fermentation, there are acid compounds and alcohol compounds that bind together and they form more complex compounds called esters. And esters act as preservatives. And so slowly over time, these esters kind of slowly break apart, releasing all of their flavors. We can kind of jumpstart that by being able to open a wine and letting it breathe. Or if you put it into what's called a decanter, basically it looks like a flask kind of thing. So if you transfer the wine into this other container and you're separating that wine out into, let's call it a sheet, right? And so you have air to surface volume. If you were to put the wine in the decanter and look in a microscope at the surface of it, you're going to see all these tiny little explosions that are happening, right? All these things are going pop, 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 pop. So all those are those esters that are breaking apart and releasing the aromatic compounds. There's other impact compounds in there as well, but I just like to use esters as a kind of simple reference point because it's a term people have probably heard before. And so as you swirl the wine in your glass, you've probably seen people do this, right? You swirl the wine in your glass, what you're doing is agitating those esters and you're breaking them apart. So that's exactly what you do. You just swirl and then smell to see if you get more aroma than you did previously. And so that's essentially the idea of what you're doing when you put it in a decanter, or when you let it breathe. You're trying to open the wine to oxygen so those aromatic compounds can break apart and release their aromas.
How would you describe if it needs to aerate more? Like if you taste a wine and then you know that it needs to be aerated more, what's that taste to you like? Is it just too rich, or that might not even be the correct word, but how would you describe it?
That is in the eye of the beholder for what you're enjoying, right? So it's like, if Structurally, if we look at the wine and talk about its acid and alcohol compounds, if there are more of those in solution, that wine can age longer. If there are less of those in solution, it will age less. So something like a Nebbiolo that you had last night is a really, really intricate wine because it is high alcohol, high acid, and high tannins. And so when all three of those started combining fermentation, that creates the highest amount of those preservatives in solution. So Nebbiolos typically can age for 50 years, no problem.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's a very, very unique one. So let's look at it when those things are not all high. So a really, really good preservative is acid or acidity. And I spoke before about how the tannic structure is actually a form of acidity. That's the best preservative for the absence of oxygen. Alcohol is the best preservative for condition. That is, the best way to store wine is about 55 degrees. And you want to have a humidity level over 60% so that the cork in the neck stays moist and doesn't dry out, start to break apart, and put oxygen into the bottle. When you have, let's say, degrees over 80, that's when it starts to become super troublesome for wine. That's where it gets to what we call the cooked flavors. These flavors can be like walnut or nuttiness. That's when a wine is cooked. If you were to leave a bottle of wine in your back seat in your car in the middle of August here in Las Vegas for 20 minutes, you will quickly see that wine is ruined, right? But the alcohol in that wine is the thing that prevents that from being cooked the most. So if it's like a 15% alcohol wine at 75 degrees, that wine will hold up much better than a 12% alcohol wine at like 80 degrees or 75 degrees. It's still, I would like to do things optimally, but at least for demonstration purposes, you can see that the acid and the tannic structure of a wine help to prevent it from turning into vinegar, and alcohol prevents it from being damaged by the environment. But when they act in combination, they even more work to fortify or solidify the wine and make sure that it's structurally sound.
Yeah. What would you suggest for a beginner? So I'm thinking like a beginner. I think the best thing is just do some home barbecues, get some steaks, and buy some bottles of wine. And I think your suggestion on don't go cheaper than $30 is probably that's an interesting thing to like. If they're going to go super cheap and get like a $7 bottle,
right? Yeah,
that might be unfortunate that if they do it once like that at $7, they may be turned off from wine and say, no, I don't like wine.
Exactly.
So it's almost better to take a gamble on the $30, or hopefully they know somebody that knows a bit of some wine and then go with that. But would you have a suggestion? I think I would suggest like for a beginner, like home barbecues, and then buy a couple bottles and try different meats with the wine.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there any foods what you would suggest for beginners also?
One thing I think is interesting about your experience that is actually is unusual for most wine consumers is that most people are turned off by tannins. That astringent feeling that you got.
Oh, I love it. It's like
people they hate that. That is the scary thing. That is like it's so bitter. It's so bitter. I don't want that.
I wouldn't call it bitter. I would call it.
But that's their description.
Okay.
It's more of like a textural thing than it is a flavor thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a textural thing.
Yeah.
But they associate that texture with the term of like bitterness.
Interesting.
And so they go, oh, that's so bitter. I don't like that. And so you've actually come at it at a more advanced wine lover appreciation than I would say most basic novices would be, because we think of it not with how it works with food like you did. We think of it as I drink soda or iced tea or lemonade. This is a drink. Oh, it's refreshing. This isn't refreshing. This is bitter. This is gross. I don't like wine. This isn't refreshing, right? Because you think of it in that context or that lens of trying to say, well, this is a refreshing beverage. No, this is something that's made for food, and you have to have the proper food on your palate, and it will help increase the pleasurability of both. So like I said, I opened a lot of restaurants and I didn't care about wine. I didn't care at all. I thought it was just another alcoholic beverage just like everyone else is. I did not catch the bug. I did not care. Um, a couple of times I had noticed that when someone shared some, like some Pinot Noir, I had some Pinot Noirs when I had no real training or understanding. And I thought, wow, that was really great. The texture was silky. It was beautiful red fruit. It was floral, and it was just easy drinking. It wasn't sharp or harsh or bitter. I didn't get that astringency. It was just soft and easy drinking. And so that was kind of a nice way for me to kind of warm up to the idea of wine by finding one that I was like, that's pretty good. So, and fast forward, I worked at this restaurant called the Pluckerman Inn in New Jersey. And in 2011, they were awarded the Grand Award from Wine Spectator magazine. And at the time, there was only 80 restaurants in the whole world that carried this honor. And so I had a wine list of 11,500 different selections. There was a white wine binder and a red wine binder, and it's a stack as big as an encyclopedia. If you're not like intimidated by that, I don't know who is. But I was one of the captains there, so I was a server. And again, I didn't really care about wine that much. It was just a thing to go with the meal, and I like doing what I do, so that's fine. But I had these guys come in, and they did this dinner party once a month where one of them would host it and bring bottles of wine from their cellar and wrap them up in aluminum foil and blind taste the rest of their guests. And they wanted me to be involved by serving the wines and making sure we didn't get things confused and all that. And like for me, it's a foreign language at this time. I'm like, yeah, whatever. This is crazy. You guys do what you're doing. Whatever. Rich guys, who cares?
This was like 2012, 2010?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's around 2010, 2011.
Okay.
And so this guy stops me basically and says, "Hey, Carl, this is one of those times, man. You got to grab a glass." And I was impressed by their ability to be able to call exactly not just the grape itself, but maybe the vineyard it came from and the producer that actually produced that wine, and then also the vintage. And so come to find out, these wines were like 55 years old. And to know the exact producer and the exact village that it came from 55 years later, mind-blowing stuff, right? I was like, this is a parlor trick. I have no idea, whatever. But anyways, this guy stops me and says, "Carl, this is one of those times you should really grab a glass." And I don't care about wine. I don't caught the bug, whatever. And I have a big section and I'm running around with my hair on fire. And I say, "Well, listen, man, I appreciate it, but I'm just so busy. I can't." He goes, "Carl, this is one of those times. Get a glass." And his and the firmness in his tone had definitely heightened up. So you can tell he was not going to take no for an answer. And so I'm looking around the room, looking at all the other customers, and they're kind of looking at me and they see the exchange going on. They're like, "Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Yeah, go for it." So yeah, lo and behold, I put this little sip of Pinot Noir on my palate. It was 55 years old, 1964 Domaine Parent. It was a Pommard from the village of Burgundy. And it blew my mind. I'd never had anything in my whole life, anything like that. It was absolutely vibrant, liquid silk, flavors through the roof, clean, pure. It was just the most incredible thing. I still don't have words that do it justice even to today.
Wow.
But that moment changed my life. That was the moment that like all the light bulbs went on. I understood why you would have a wine collection, why you'd have a wine cellar, why you'd pass along your wine collection to your children so that they can enjoy it in their next generation. It all made sense in that instant. It was the most amazing moment. And it was that day that I decided that this is what I want to do. And I've been chasing the dragon ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. And that's the reason. And so for me, I felt for easily the first 9 years of my 20s that I did not have what everybody else had. I was incapable of tasting. I didn't taste like other people taste. I didn't feel my body was speaking to me that the way the other people were speaking about their body speaking to them. So I thought there was a disconnect between me and my ability to determine if I had stuff needed to be able to know that this tastes like this and then describe it like that. And so I definitely felt like I was inadequate. I'm never going to get this. I'll never be able to achieve it. It's impossible. All these thoughts were in my head. And when you realize that you can't drive the car without learning how to drive it first, you can't you don't have a structure to appreciate something unless you have a little bit of the basics of understanding. And I think that's the thing that has been most rewarding about this journey, is that I thought I was incapable and didn't have what was necessary. And then through a little bit of study and practice and experience, I came to realize that I have everything that everyone else does. So does everybody else too. There isn't master sommeliers that are better tasters than me, right? It's the theory of wine and how we deduce what we're tasting is the way we do our blind tasting method. I'm a detective that's collecting clues. And instead of saying, Mrs. Jones killed Mr. Jones in the library with a pipe, I go, well, Mrs. Jones was out in the driveway, so she couldn't have killed Mr. Jones. And to Mr. Q, well, he was in the kitchen having a conversation with him, so it couldn't be him either, right? So that's a little bit the way it works. If you, like you were tasting that Nebbiolo last night, Nebbiolo has a very distinctive aroma, and the color of it as well is very distinctive as well. So you can almost make some very quick deductions by looking at this color of Nebbiolo, I know it's not Napa Valley Cabernet, right? The color, the core, the intensity, like the hue, all of those things are never going to be even close. So because I understand the theory of these things, my ability to recognize them becomes easier, and it becomes much more impressive to those who are on the outside of it, Yeah. But it's not a parlor trick. It really isn't. It's about studying the theory of these things and then applying that theory in which to application. I imagine it's probably very similar to the way that someone would study, like investing in cryptocurrency. If you were to try to look into, well, let's look at some of the fundamentals here. Let's look at some of the ways that markets move. I even looked into this market theory thing around the Fibonacci sequence, and people start to figure out market trends based on this natural pattern that happens. And if you don't have some of these like the saturation in these fundamentals, and you look at these graphs, it just looks like a foreign language. You have no idea what to look at. It just looks like, well, I don't know what I'm looking at. These ups and downs. Okay, cool. What do I look at? I have no idea how to read this. So I think of it kind of in the same way. You're just kind of approaching wine and going, well, it's a glass and there's juice in here. I don't know what else is going on. But if you start to understand fundamentals and you start break it down, you're like, oh, I have a much greater appreciation and I can apply this and then be more successful.
Yeah.
So it's just like anything in life, if there's a lot of information, you've got to spend some time digging a little bit deeper. And if you dig deep enough, you'll be rewarded for your hard work.
Would you have any suggestions for kind of the wine enthusiasts, maybe that 99% that you think come into your restaurant or that you interact with, that they think that they know enough about wine or a lot about wine? What would you suggest for them to try at home to have a new or better experience with wine? Is there anything that, from your experience?
So probably the main thing that you need is a nice set of wine glasses. This is probably number one. You're not really doing yourself a very good service by spending more on a bottle of wine than you typically do, right? You're going to go out and get a nice bottle of wine because you want to try this experiment at home. You're doing yourself a disservice if you want to drink this wine out of a coffee cup, or if you want to drink out of one of those little tiny little small wine glasses, right? Find a nice glass with a nice big bulb so that you can swirl this wine and aerate and agitate it. The second thing I would get is a decanter. A decanter is probably my favorite thing I use for wine tasting at the house. Almost every single time I open a bottle of wine, it goes into a decanter. Almost every time.
It's like a pitcher. Is it a fancy pitcher thing that aerates?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And these are not necessarily meant to be expensive. It is just a vessel, right? My favorite place is actually going to Goodwill. And you can get a whole bunch of, rich people who have donated their extra things, and there's not a lot of people who are looking for a decanter. So every time I go,
dude, I'm gonna go look for one, man.
seriously, I've got 8 or 9 upstairs that I bought for less than $5 each.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
they are sick. They're awesome. There's one that I know is $100 value, like easily. It's made of crystal. It's heavy. It's beautiful. $5. Yeah,
that's awesome. Because me and my friends were looking online, and I think we were looking at a $400 one. We were just looking, and we're just like, God damn, $400. Because I told them my story of how I love that feeling in my lips and whatnot with wine.
Love the tannins. Love the tannins. Yeah.
So
I love the tannins.
I told them about aerating the wine, and then we found like a $400. It was supposed to be the perfect the perfect way to aerate your wine.
Oh yeah, like one of the circulators or
yeah.
You basically want one that looks like a spaceship is probably the best kind, like a saucer, right? So if you think about a wide bottom, and so when you put the wine in here, right? I'm gonna make the thing. So you put the wine in here. There is a very wide surface.
Mm-hmm.
So the air that touches that surface is affecting a lot of the wine. If you were to open a bottle of wine and you didn't pour any of the wine out, you've just taken the cork out, the only air that's getting in is touching the top surface of what you've taken out.
So yesterday when you told me to aerate for 5 hours, I didn't pour it out. I only pulled the top off. And then when I tasted it, it felt like it still needed more time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry I wasn't more specific about that.
So what I did do, I had a big wine glass, so I poured some in, and then I just shook like crazy.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Exactly the idea. Yeah, exactly the idea. Yeah, exactly. That is also appropriate for, I mean, I know it's kind of like an advanced level thing, but that shape of that decanter is more appropriate for different styles of wine. Like the Nebbiolo is perfect because it has those high percentages of all those structural elements. So the longer it can age, the longer it can be decanted and the more air that it can sustain before it turns into vinegar. Wine's actually pretty sturdy. It can last for a week in the fridge, no problem, and still keep pretty fresh. So even if you were to open a bottle of Nebbiolo like yesterday, throw it in the decanter, and then enjoy it today, it will be so good. It will be so good. But if something like some Pinot Noir from Oregon that is kind of delicate, if you were to decant that yesterday and enjoy it today, it's probably going to lose a little bit of its freshness and feel a little flat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that depends on the wine. I was going to ask, should you keep the bottle, pour it in the decanter, and then if you didn't finish it that night, should you pour it back in the bottle to kind of get less air in and store it in the fridge or something?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not really, it's not going to damage it either way. You're basically you're exposing it to let's say increase oxygen, and then you want to stop that.
Yeah.
So you put it back in the bottle, and you're just stopping it. So whatever the point that it's at, then you kind of you put a freeze on that development, and then put it in the freeze so you can kind of stop it or slow it down. Anyways, slow it down. Yeah. But the air has already been introduced to that wine, so it will develop faster than if you hadn't decanted it and just left it in the bottle for a week. Right. So you open the bottle, you decanted it, you left it for 6 hours, you drank half of it, you put it back in the bottle, and then kept it. Probably only okay for a couple of days.
Yeah. Yep.
If you opened a bottle and you just poured out a couple of glasses and then you corked the rest of the bottle and put that in the fridge, that'd probably be okay for a week.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we're at halfway through, and we spoke about wine the whole time, but that's totally awesome. If we want to continue about wine or jump to cryptocurrency, or actually, I think, do you have any closing, maybe before we switch to cryptocurrencies, any closing thoughts on wine? Something to advise beginners, advanced people, anything that's lesser known from the majority of wine enthusiasts? Any thoughts?
So I think the biggest takeaway of it all is to not take it so seriously. Just have fun. enjoy your life, explore. You never know if you like orange soda if you only drink root beer your whole life. You just got to change it up every once in a while.
Yeah.
And there's a saying I like too, that you have to endure a Monday to appreciate a Friday. So even if you get a bottle of wine that you don't love as much as your favorite, that's okay. Now you know
Yeah.
where that one stands.
Yeah.
And keep trying, because you never know, the next bottle might be better than your favorite. So it's like important not to pigeonhole yourself and just get stuck into this one brand that's all you do. And we as American consumers, we kind of get naturally forced into this dichotomy of things. Are you a fan of Honda or Toyota? Do you like Ford or Dodge? Are you chocolate or vanilla? Are you left or you right? Right? There's all these dichotomies, and then you get on your tribe, you get on your team, and that's what your thing is. You're now a Yankee fan, and that's it. You're just a Yankee fan. You don't even follow the Red Sox. You'll never watch Red Sox, never, right? And so we have this kind of thing in our society that puts us on teams or on camps, and we're just stuck there. And people do that in wine too, and it's something I try to break apart. Like, I know that you love Napa Valley Cabernet. I know you do. I know. But every once in a while, just try a Washington one. Just give it a whirl, man. You never know how much you might enjoy it. You never know. And so I think that's probably the main thing for for novice consumers to not take it too seriously, but also advanced consumers. Well, whatever know that you know nothing, and that there's so much more to know.
That's almost a statement for all humans. I mean, when I do software engineering,
right? Yeah.
Oh, every freaking year, every month, there's something new. There's never enough time. But go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's exactly the same thing. It's just stay hungry, stay humble, stay exploratory, stay curious. Stay curious is like the biggest thing of life. Just be curious about it all, right? And I want you to dig deeper in your own thoughts. Like, it's not just I like this or I don't like this. Let's try to put some words into why that you don't like this. What about this is that you don't like, right? Is there something about it that you do like? And there's another element that you don't like. Okay, cool. So let's try to highlight the thing that you like, and let's find other wines that have that as well. And so then you can find something. Oh, okay, that's that same chord that's really pleasing me. I like that. And then it's just like, just stay open-minded with that, and just try to explore, and just to try to use your thoughts to increase your appreciation, because that's exactly what will do it. Because if you don't have the words around it, well, how do you develop the words? You throw some mud at the wall until something sticks, and you just keep doing it, and then you're like, okay, all right, I know how this mud feels. You know what I mean? And so you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting with alcohol, we can get hangovers. So it's sometimes if you enjoy it too much, you hate yourself, and you're like, I'll never drink alcohol again. So it's weird kind of love-hate relationship with yourself, and how much damage you might do to yourself, and being able to increase the pleasurability of your life.
Yeah, I think the pigeonhole thing is really the perfect word, or at least for the majority of people that I've dealt with. Meaning, I have a friend or some friends where they're just like, I want meat and potatoes. That's all they want. I don't care about wine. I just want my meat and potatoes. Like, if I try to introduce them to sushi or something different, they're just, no, I just want my meat and potatoes. So that's how I think about wine too. If someone doesn't want to even try it, I'm just like, well, just try a little bit. Just try a sip. Just try a sip.
Yeah.
And then, every few months. Yeah. Every few months, just try a sip again. Maybe you'll like it. And then try to, like you said, like, dig into the feelings of the flavor, the how what you like about what you don't like. I think of life as like a lot of experiences, good and bad, and wine is one of those where it's even more. I would say there's a lot. I don't want to say there's a lot of bads, but as in, not, you're not going to enjoy every. Yeah, you're not going to enjoy every wine.
Yeah, you can get burned.
Yeah.
There's this. There's a thing called wine faults, right? And so wine, there's sometimes can be bad. You might open a bottle, and there's this term called like the corkiness or corked wine. You've heard of corked wine. The chemical compound for this is called trichloranisol, and this actually comes from the corks that are cleaned in a solution with chlorine. And because of that, it's a threshold that will pass a certain marker for you as a taster. So it's in the parts per million. And if it gets over a certain amount of these parts per million, your palate might detect it, or you might smell it, and you might go, "Oh, that's an off that's an off odor or like aroma," and then this wine is bad. For others, that threshold is different. So I might taste a wine that's corked, and you might be like, it tastes fine to me. I don't know what you're talking about." And so different thresholds. But anyways, if you spend $100 on a bottle of wine and you bring it home and it's corked and it's bad, you can't even drink it. Whoo, that's a burn, huh? How many times are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Now there's this thing that's been going on in the Burgundy region of France for the last 15 years called the premature oxidation. It happens in their Chardonnays, and there's a few different theories about why this occurs, but essentially this wine acts as if it is over the hill and oxidized years before it should be. White Burgundy is also extremely expensive. So imagine you spent $500 or $1,000 on a bottle of wine, and it was prematurely oxidized. So that way you just spent $1,000 and it is down the drain. Imagine you get a case of 6 and 3 of them are that way. How many times are you going to go back and buy those cases of this stuff, right? That's a good way to get burned. Right? And people get burned on this stuff all the time, and I love white Burgundy. I love it. It's like one of my favorite things. So I've been burned. I get it. But it's that risk reward, right? It's like, I'm willing to take the risk, and if the reward hits, nothing's better, you know? I think there's always that. If you get burned and you're not willing to take the risk, then it could hurt. But if you are willing to take the risk and you're willing to take that burn because you know that, when you get that pinnacle of achievement, it's totally worth the risk. Totally worth the risk. So
at your restaurant, for your if a guest comes in, what's the best experience that they could have, or is there some type of tips that you could advise a guest to come to your restaurant? Is there a way for them to have the best wine experience, and or even talk to you and ask for your suggestions, or what's your your suggestions on
that? The way that that is typically the way that you want to kind of interact with a guest when they're speaking about, all right, they want to get a bottle of wine. So the first question I always have is, well, what kind of wines do you like? And I know that's super vague and super sharp. I try to follow it up quickly with short questions with, do you like something that's light, or something that's rich, or something that's fruity, or something that's dry? And then if this person doesn't really feel comfortable describing it in those terms, then I start to bring it to their level personally. What is a wine that you've had personally? What's your favorite wine? What's, like, be specific. What's that wine exactly? The brand, the place, anything you remember about it. What was that exact bottle? And I'm pretty good with producers. I know a lot of producers. And so pretty typically, whatever wine that you say is your favorite, I've had, I know what that wine is like, and I can make a recommendation that will make one step in either direction that could increase your wine experience. And the last one I try to get a sense of is how much money you want to spend, and it depends on the on the occasion. If you're at a business meeting and you can see that the host wants to choose a nice bottle of wine for the table, but you don't want him to say out loud how much money he's comfortable in spending, because you don't want to make him reveal his cheapness in front of his guests he's trying to impress, right? So I might just use my finger to point in a certain area, something like this or something like this, and it is usually a very helpful tool about being non-verbally communicative about what you're trying to accomplish, and that's it's a subtle thing, but those who realize what you're trying to accomplish, I'm not trying to impede that. I want to help that, right? And so I have to think about also your experience. Are you on a date with your love? Is it a special date? Is your anniversary? And so everything is tailored and changed based on what I would think I would recommend if I was enjoying that experience myself. So it's my anniversary. It's a celebration. Do you want to start with a little sparkling wine to get things going? That's probably what I would do. No, we don't like sparkling wine. Okay, all right. So then you have to make the next recommendation about what they've said. So there's all kinds of little you have to flip on a dime all the time to make adjustments. But I think um, the main thing a consumer can do is to say, this is what I like. And if you don't have the terms in like describing like the wine itself, just say your favorite bottle of wine that you've had, and even if the restaurant doesn't have it, that's the thing I think most consumers miss out on. They open the wine list, they don't see their favorite wine, they close the wine list, and then they go on to something else.
Yeah.
There's millions of wines, and not every wine list can have all of them. But we probably have styles of wine that are very similar to the one that you've had, right? I want to make sure that all styles are represented, even though I can't carry all wines. So if you want to say, well, my favorite wine is The Prisoner from the Prisoner Wine Trading Company. Okay, cool. Well, I don't carry that at the restaurant, but that was started in the late 90s by a gentleman named Mr. David McPhinney. And the winery he produced is called Orin Swift. The Orin Swift was the first maker of The Prisoner. It very quickly became very popular as a brand, and he sold The Prisoner, which to a new company that started under Constellation Brands called the Prisoner Wine Trading Company. And a part of his sales clause is that he wasn't allowed to make any Zinfandel-based blends for 8 years. So in 2016, he finally released his new project called 8 Years in the Desert. So I don't have The Prisoner, but I have the newest version of The Prisoner, right? So if you as a consumer come in and you don't know that this happened and you're looking for The Prisoner, well, all right, well, I give up.
Yeah.
If you had just had a conversation, you would have, one, you've learned something, when you've gotten a cool story, and now you found an even better version of The Prisoner that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Right? So all you had to do is say, this is my favorite, this is what I'm looking for, and then what can you recommend? So helpful. If you just let me know a couple details, I can do the rest.
Yeah.
But,
okay. So
yeah.
Oh, what you said the name of the restaurant, but say it one more time, and then maybe we'll switch over to cryptocurrency.
The restaurant I work at?
Yeah, the restaurant you work at.
Yeah, so I'm currently the wine director for the Golden Steer Steakhouse. Yeah, it's the oldest still operating restaurant here in Las Vegas. Been open since 1958, and it's a historic place. And
what's the crossroads where it's at?
It's the address is 308 West Sahara Avenue. The cross streets are Las Vegas Boulevard or the Strip, as well as Sahara Avenue. It is next to the Hearn Hotel, and yeah, it's
cool.
an iconic place. I would definitely urge everyone to at least check it out at least once. Yeah,
awesome.
Sure.
All right, we could switch over to cryptocurrency if you want.
Alrighty.
What do you want to know, or what's your thoughts on cryptocurrency? Or
sure. Yeah. So I definitely will have to say, I'm an addictive style of personality.
Okay.
When I get into something, I'm like incessantly trying to learn and pay attention, and I want to absorb as much as I can. And sometimes I get ahead of myself, and so.
I thought you were saying addictive, as in like take it like you want to dump a bunch of money into like if you got addicted to stocks or something, then dump in a bunch of money, but not that type of addiction.
No, I'm not overly invested. So I don't like gambling. I don't like lottery tickets. I don't. I work for a living. I work hard. I'm passionate about what I do, as you can tell. But I also like to take my money home and to spend it on things that are valuable for me.
Yeah.
And so I would rather not drink every day so that I can drink once a week and have a nice bottle of wine, right? I would rather make sacrifices every day in which to reward myself for a treat, I think, for all my hard work.
Yeah.
So I've just been trying to learn and to pay attention and just to follow some of the leaders within what I perceive so far as the industry, and who these people are and what their vested interest in. It's been interesting because I bought some Bitcoin back in 2013 or so when I worked at the D Hotel downtown, and they were one of the first places in the city to get a Bitcoin ATM machine. And we were also a restaurant that were accepting Bitcoin for payment. And so it was pretty cool even back then to see people come in with their smartphones, wave a little scanning barcode thing at our iPad, and it paid for their steak dinner. So I thought that was pretty cool even back then. I went to the ATM machine and I bought a couple of Bitcoins for like $300 each. And I thought, well, I don't know what this is used for or how to do it. I was able to put it onto a wallet, and then that was kind of confusing. And then I had lost my job, and there was a period where I was unemployed, and things went kind of tough for a little while. And I made the decision to sell them. And so I sold them for about $625 each. So I did make a return on it. But in hindsight, obviously, I wish I still had those. But it was kind of a pain in the ass in which to sell them through the wallet onto another ATM machine and have it kick out money for me. The process had failed a couple times. It took like an hour and a half of me fighting with this ATM machine to get my money out of it. And I just thought, man, this is not really quite there yet for me. I appreciated the convenience of being able to use my debit card and get money out and all that transaction stuff much, much quicker. So I kind of wrote it off and put it off to the side as like, all right, this isn't really ready for me yet. I see it's going to be the future, but I'm going to put it over here. And then I started to focus on wine. I went so deeper into that, worked on my career, just focused on that stuff and didn't pay attention to anything except what I had to accomplish. And then I got my job at the Golden Steer, started to do very well, started to earn money. I bought a house. I started to save. I started to have abundance. And then when you have abundance, you start to go, well, how can I maybe invest this abundance and make sure that I don't have to work as hard in the future as I once did,
Yep.
And so, yeah, with this GameStop thing that started to come up, and then the Dogecoin thing that came up, and then started to realize how violently speculative that is with a meme, and how Elon Musk can tweet, and how people can lose value or gain value within a minute of him making a tweet. And so that's really interesting. One thing I didn't reveal before when we were talking about wine is that I'm really into wine list psychology. That is, if you open a wine list, what draws your attention? When you see wines priced, how does that make you feel? When they're in a ballpark by themselves, how does that make you feel? When the wines are clustered in prices together, also, how does that make you feel? Right? When there's one of something versus 15 of something. And so how does that make consumers move and drive, right? And so how do you price things too? And that's really interesting to be like, if I have something that's like $68 and I put it next to something that's $80, will people go for the $68 so much more? If I price it at 71 and 71 and 80, how much more times do people go for the $80 bottle? Right? It's within an increment that is consumable, right? And so those small details I'm fascinated by. And I think within the psychology and the market and with crypto, a lot of those same kind of fascinations still drive my thought process. If there's buyers and sellers, and there's whales, and there's retail investors, and then how does everyone think about what's happening, and then what does that make them do? So how do we see the trends based on, well, this is spiking, and so we're going to see people jump out and take their gains, or are they going to stay holding until it drops and lose their value and panic and then sell? So all of these things strike that chord for my wine list psychology, I guess the thought process of it. And so that's been the easy part for me to kind of be like, oh, this is fascinating.
What's your kind of let me probe you for your knowledge of blockchain for now, and then we'll kind of maybe start a little bit from the beginning.
Cool.
What's your knowledge on like mining, blockchain, and decentralization?
Okay, so this is definitely going to be the novice explanation. So the way I've kind of I've thought about like mining is there is a complex math problem that is trying to be solved, and that there are these servers that are working on trying to solve this computation. and it is very, very long and complex. And eventually, this computation gets solved, and it is agreed upon by these servers that this computation is correct. And so, because they all agree upon this computation being the same, they can maybe together agree that this is now a completed transaction, and that it gets released into, I guess, the ethos of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And because of the number of these computations that exist, that becomes like a supply. And if there's enough demand for this supply, then it becomes valuable. So I think that's probably my simplest understanding about how I think about blockchain.
You're able to explain it pretty well for a novice. So let me just disclaimer that I'm a programmer, so I didn't really start deep diving into cryptocurrency until 2016. I guess now that seems, 5 years in cryptocurrency seems like an eternity, because cryptocurrency is nuts, man.
Yeah.
This roller coaster is insane. Okay, so with that disclaimer, meaning that I'm a programmer, I've tried to look at some of the code, I've looked at technical white papers, but like we mentioned earlier, there's so much to learn. It's nuts.
Yeah.
When I go deep into the white papers and I start talking about even the mine, when they mine what the header of the block looks like and what's in the header, there's a nonce. It's a number that's supposed to increment per block per miner, and all this stuff that's trying to make it a unique block number, or unique calculated unique
Like a signature?
Signature, yeah, signature, yes. So the fundamental of all that, let's go back to RSA. So RSA is, I actually don't know, it's initials of three guys that created this algorithm, which you take two prime numbers and there's all this math, and with those two prime numbers, you could get you get a private key and a public key, which means that public key, you could encrypt anything. Like if you want to encrypt the message or hello world is the message. You use this public key to encrypt it. You send that encrypted message to the person who holds the private key, and hopefully that person should be the only person that has that private key, and they are the only one that could decrypt that message. This RSA encryption that currently in I think almost all cryptocurrencies, they're using a 256-bit encryption. It's scalable. There's 512-bit encryption, 1024-bit encryption, 2000, and so on. Because it's scalable, I'll just quickly say I think that's why I'm not scared of quantum computers. People are scared of quantum computers, but as soon as quantum computers come, you just go to the highest level that's very tough for it to calculate, and just use that highest encryption, or that whatever the next level encryption that it's hard for. So this RSA is so insanely pervasive. If you use email, if you use the internet, if you're on a Zoom call, if you're anything related to the internet, if you're on a website and you see HTTPS, you're using RSA. It's everywhere. RSA is in everything, everywhere, digital, basically, almost. Maybe not.
This Zoom link that you sent me, was that?
Underneath of what Zoom's doing, they should be using RSA, which I'm pretty sure they are. So if you see HTTPS, I think that link did, but almost everything on the internet is RSA encrypted. So what it is your computer had a private key. It calculated a private key, or assigned itself a private key, and then it has a public key. So it went to Zoom, and to Zoom, your computer said, "Here's my public key. So send all your data encrypted to this public key. I have the private key, or you have the private key in your computer. It's all, you don't know anything about this. It's all, they programmed this. It's all built into the protocol of HTTPS, and it's seamless. We don't even know about it. So then Zoom sends all this data to you, but it's encrypted. So only your computer with that private key should be the only computer that can decrypt it. I'm not sure on this. Don't quote me. I bet you internet HTTPS, depending on the encryption, it creates the packets are bigger, so it's more internet usage. So I wonder for video streaming like this, maybe it's a lower encryption. Maybe they're doing 128 or 64. I'm not sure on that, but I'm going to assume that. So for blockchain cryptocurrency, most of them are 256. So that whole thing with that public private key is the basis on everything. Think of the things that you could do it with it. So meaning a mining server has a mechanism. Well, let's take a wallet. The wallet's easier to kind of understand. A wallet has a public key, private key. Your wallet has a public key, private key. The mining server is going to say, okay, you want to send five Ethereum coins to Liem. It wants to know that you are the owner of that wallet. So it does a like a password check per se, where it'll sign something with your public key and send it to you and ask you if you could decrypt it. And then you could tell it what the decrypted message is. And then it says, oh, you really do have the private key to that public key. So then once you sign a transaction with your private key, it's going to send that amount to me. So everything on blockchain is, the fundamentals is RSA encryption. This RSA encryption, as far as I understand, I've said this like 3 times in these talks so far, and I should probably go research it. I think it's been since World War II. Like they were doing like smaller bit encryption by hand. People were doing these encryption using 2 prime numbers, encrypting the message, sending it out with a public. Someone across the world gives you their public key. You encrypt the message to their public key. You send it out, and then they could decrypt the message. And they should hopefully be the only one that decrypts the message. Now, back then, because I think they were doing it by hand, so they have to pick the largest encryption that a human, like, meaning the great thing about RSA encryption is it's harder to hack the encryption. Like if I have the private key, I could decrypt it really quick. My computer, I have the private key, it does it real quick. But if someone intercepts that message and tries to decrypt it, it would take for 256-bit encryption. I did the math. It's 1 with 70 zeros behind it, and that's how many years it would take one computer to hack one wallet. Yeah. So the time of the universe, basically. Now it's improbable, but not impossible.
Right.
So there could be some really crazy fluke. Someone has a wallet that has a bunch of money in it, and some crazy fluke that some computer freaking on the first attempt, it guesses the private key.
Yeah, there's gotta be somebody that wins the Powerball.
Yeah. Which is Powerball is like 1 in, I think 1 in 30 million, I think.
Yeah.
1 in 30. No, 1 in 60 million. Getting bit by a great white shark or something is 1 in 30 million. 1 in 60 million is the Powerball, and then cryptocurrency is something like astronomical after that. It's even worse.
It's like getting bit by a shark while winning.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so take this this mechanism of RSA that is the fundamental of blockchain. So now imagine all the things you could do with it. So
is this part of what's like the proof of
proof of work, proof of stake?
Right. So proof of work is this model.
All of it's this model. This encryption. Proof of work, proof of stake uses this encryption. They all use this encryption. This encryption is it's the security protocol that they use to be able to send secure messages back and forth.
Okay.
So now if you have a private key to a wallet, and say we change this paradigm shift to let's make this wallet your identity. Let's just go with that. Where maybe you need your fingerprints, maybe 3 out of 10 fingerprints to unlock your wallet, or maybe blood with 2 fingerprints. So now we could do something with identity where we could vote on a president. And if everyone has a wallet in this identity blockchain, you could do paradigm shifts on everything from government to laws. I mean, now you could vote on a law, you could have that law on a blockchain, and this is a paradigm shift to everything that we've never had a technology like this before. So this is why I'm really bullish on cryptocurrency. And the genie's out of the bag. You can't turn cryptocurrency off because it's decentralized. Right. You'd have to, EMP bomb the entire world and take us back to the Stone Ages. Yeah. And even then, I think one server, I think it was the Blockchains LLC. They bought, if I remember correctly, they bought a military mountain from like World War II, where they have a tunnel that goes down, and there's a server room down there. So if you EMP bomb, it won't take out that server. Nice.
Nice.
So I think they are choosing Ethereum. So Ethereum is EMP proof, as I think. So what else? Now, because cryptocurrency can't die, I feel like it's only a matter of time. And then you see the paradigm shifts that this could happen. I call it the consensus of truth. And I think this is a huge thing that most people don't even understand. I mean, we might have talked about it, but I'll mention a little bit more about it.
Yeah, you had kind of written about it a little bit, and it struck kind of like the morality chord with me a little bit of like taking out the decision making for individuals to be swayed sometimes by factors, and instead the system determines the truth, and that you can't misrepresent, or you can't go out of your way to
exactly.
Yeah.
Now I think when it boils down to it, this is a tool though. Blockchain is a tool, meaning we humans, as stupid as we are, or as populations, how stupid as we are. Mm-hmm. It's weird. I just want to inject in there. It's weird. One-on-one, I feel like most people, we're all so cool, but then mass population or something, governments screw it all up. Whatever. People, mass population of governments.
I think, was it George Carlin that might have said it? Like, a person is smart, but people are stupid.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? Like, you can have a conversation with a person one-on-one, and you can find all their truths and all their genius, but you look at the way people like operate as a group, and you're just like, what in the hell?
Yeah, exactly. So with blockchain, it's a tool. So if we humans decide to use it, I think that's the future. I think if we don't use it, I think we're throwing away an amazing, amazing tool. We've never had consensus of truth. We never had any tool. There's never been anything available to do this before. Consensus of truth, what I call that is, so say the voting thing. If we build a blockchain of identity and then we tie that to voting, and then a president has X amount of votes to become a president, that's a consensus of truth. When I say consensus, though, the mining servers whether the mining servers or the group of people can vote to hard fork a consensus or a blockchain. So meaning Bitcoin's been through many hard forks. Ethereum's been through one. Let's go with the biggest one that I can remember of Ethereum. 2016, 2017, there's a smart contract called the DAO, DAO. And if I remember correctly, they were saying you could invest in their company, and every dollar you put in, they will buy $1 of gold and put it in their vault. So your cryptocurrency, it's backed by gold. I might be slightly wrong in that. I do remember. So around the world, a lot of this stuff is open source. So developers started looking at the DAO smart contract, and the developers around the world are saying, "Hey, it looks like you guys got a loophole in your logic. Somebody could take money out of your account." And the DAO at that time were like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We got it covered. Don't worry about it." And the developers like, "What the heck?" Sketch. So someone found the hack and started trying to take out money. Super fortunate. there was a clause in that smart contract that said, I think it was 1 week that it would have to escrow that amount before it gave it all out. So the whole world saw this and said, holy shit, we need to hard fork this smart contract out, meaning we need to get the consensus of all the miners to agree that we're going to erase that transaction. So morally, philosophically, is it wrong to change something that was written in code? But as the millions of people around the world, they're saying, yeah, let's hard fork, which means to change that piece of code, and everyone agrees to implement this new code base for all the miners around the world.
Okay.
What did happen was, I think 99 to 97% took the new code. Between 1 and 3% didn't take the new code. So the 1 and 3% became a new fork, and then the 97% became its own fork. And everyone, the majority of people, are looking at the 97%.
Which was the safe side?
What was that?
And that was the safe side? They were okay? The other side get hacked? Or what do you mean?
The other side, they forked off, and they allowed the hack to happen.
Yeah.
I totally see on one side the 3%. I understand both sides. The 3% are saying, hey, the DAO people were informed. They knew about this hack. They wrote the code. They should lose the money. The 97% is kind of saying, well, everybody knew about the hack, and so let's go with it. So
interesting.
So that actual 3% became Ethereum Classic. So if you search on like any cryptocurrency list,
no, I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay, you should be able to find Ethereum Classic.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 3% was that?
So it had a good rise recently.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to talk about morals. I think the DAO fucked up. They fucked up. They should almost eat their words or their work.
Yeah.
But that was $400 million back then, which back then $400 million, I don't know. That'd be something in the tens of billions probably right now.
Certainly, yeah.
So,
do you think there's almost like a grace period for this new technology, and that, like, I mean, I could see, like, in our old paradigm, we want people to take responsibility for their actions, but because this is such a new, like, uncharted territory, there are going to be mistakes and there are going to be predators, and it almost seems like the community should band together for the greater good to say that if we know that this is a technology that can be hacked and can be fallible, let's try to work together to prevent those things from happening and to make a better technology for the community.
Yeah. So I think once I say this, I think I'll get a bunch of haters online, but I think there could be a place for a republic coin of some sort. So maybe you could set up a cryptocurrency that has a body of people, a body of entities, and those entities could be many people. So it could be groups and groups of groups, but say 300 entities that vote on things, and that 300 body could vote on if I clicked on an email that was some prince from Somalia telling me to send some coin over there, and then this body of 300 like, oh, you got scammed, we know about that scam, we're gonna allow a hard fork or something on that transaction. I think that's an interesting angle with cryptocurrency. I don't know what to predict with that. I do what you're saying though. I do try to hedge. I try to set up my investments in cryptocurrency in that fashion, meaning I categorize my investments in cryptocurrency. I have platform coins, I have centralized privacy coins, and then speed coins, and even centralized coins. So platform coin is like, are you shaking your head
Yeah, it's
at
just
that?
like those are like the things that are interesting. Well, what makes it daunting, right? This is there's
So
Riesling,
so
Cabernet
much.
Sauvignon, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, so on and
Yeah,
so forth. And I'm like, I don't know
yeah,
what
yeah,
these
yep,
are.
yep,
Okay, got it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think I boil it down to about five categories. Platform coins are my favorite. Ethereum. I think Cardano is a platform coin they're trying to be.
yeah,
I think you mentioned
yeah.
messaged me on that. A couple people I think two other people messaged me about Cardano recently.
Mhm.
Platform coins are where there's a programming layer on it, so I think they're really interesting because they could do virtually everything. Maybe one of the things that they lack is super speed. They may not be super fast, but I think that's where Ethereum 2.0 with proof of stake, um, a I think that's where proof of stake they have speed, but they do sacrifice potentially security.
Something I've started to see come up recently in regards to Ethereum is called the gas fees.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
So
speak about gas fees? What's that?
so when a mining server say mining server there's a mining server and then person A wants to send person B money, that transaction goes to a mining server, and whichever the mining server that figures out that calculation first gets the gas fee. So the gas fee is just a fraction of usually a fraction of a penny. Sometimes I hear Ethereum has gone up, where sometimes it hits like I thought I heard 15 cents on some transactions. Um, but there's an interesting mechanism with cryptocurrency where the mining consensus is able to change um, the difficulty of mining, because there's a balance of speed and security. You could make the security less, but and the speed faster. So the mining community, I think there's a built-in. Don't quote me on this. I think there's a built-in speed. They somehow factor in speed where if it starts to get too slow, they'll change the security so it's a tiny bit easier to make the transactions go a little bit faster. But then costs of the gas fees may be in there somehow. I don't fully understand, but it's just I think it's the mining servers asking for fees, but it's a globally the supply and demand is globally done by the mining servers. So if they start asking too much, I think people will start using the coin less. If they start using the coin less, then the mining servers will get less transaction fees. So there's a great supply and demand in there.
When is Ethereum 2.0 with proof of stake supposed to be out?
Um,
Or
phase
is there news on that? Was it phase zero you said came out in December?
Correct. Phase zero came out in December.
There's
Phase
supposed to
zero,
be phase one, then a phase two? Or
there's going to be phase one, then phase two.
okay.
I believe, I forget.
It's gonna take some time then, huh?
Yeah, between 1 and 3 years, I think.
Okay. And so then do you anticipate um, not a lot of market movement on Ethereum until the 2.0 comes out, and then you see it really gaining steam, or do you still think it's kind of all kind of linked to the Bitcoin rise, and we're going to see all coins rise with the rising tide?
I Yes to all of that, meaning wait, except for if the price stagnation, that I think it's too tough to predict. I see that.
Sure, if we all had a crystal ball, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because say the ETH 2.0 is, I want to say it's very known in the I want to say it's probably 60. I'm just totally guessing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
Okay.
60% of the cryptocurrency community knows about Ethereum 2.0, and that probably means 0% of the general public. I think probably barely knows about ETH 2.0 coming out in the
Right.
next 1 to 3 years. As news of that comes, I would imagine I would think the price of ETH should go up.
Yeah, I would think so too.
The only caveat is if something technically goes wrong with ETH 2.0, meaning say the developers didn't anticipate the sharding of the blockchain. They have a sharding mechanism where it breaks the Ethereum 2.0 blockchain into, I believe, 64 shards, and each of those 64 shards are ran by its subset of miners to make it faster. So it's like kind of parallel processing, sort of, not quite, but kind of. So one shard could do something so much faster and report to the another shard that it affects that needs that data. But then if they don't touch each other, then they don't need to transfer that data for those transfers. So if something went wrong with sharding, then maybe there will be I'm guessing at worst, I think just a slowdown on release. I think that would be worse. Can I foresee? I don't foresee something going so bad that they push into production and then something goes wrong, because I think I forget if it's 500 developers working on Ethereum according to the GitHub. So Ethereum has like 500 developers. I think Bitcoin has 600 or something like that. I might be wrong on that. But these developers are freaking smart motherfuckers. Even when I played around with mining servers, staking servers on the testnet, like some of these people online, man, when I ask them for questions, I'm like, holy crap, you're fucking smart. Like, you're amazing. Thank you for helping me and explaining to me all this stuff. Yeah. So and I think even that person helping me wasn't even a developer too. I think they were part of the Lighthouse and our Prism team. Lighthouse and Prism there's even a subset of people who are helping push out the mining clients. And that's not even the people developing on Ethereum itself. It's freaking nuts how big this ecosystem is.
Yeah. That's kind of wow. That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. So I think the price of Ethereum should go up, but I could be wrong. I'm not a financial advisor, but I would, if someone asked me, should they put money in Ethereum? I would say yes. Should they put money in Bitcoin? How about this? My personal allocation is 90% Ethereum, 5% in Bitcoin, and 5% on others.
Right.
So I have 5% on others, as in like a little bit in Monero, a little bit in Ripple, a little bit in other stuff. So kind of the categories. Ethereum is a platform. I consider Bitcoin a store of value, not a platform coin, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
Ripple.
Yeah.
Ripple's a centralized coin that I thought the governments might like because it's centralized, but I actually thought to me, I look at as nailing their own grave. If governments adopt, say, Ripple, I think they're basically saying, hey, cryptocurrency is actually pretty good. So then things like Ethereum and Bitcoin will have more room to grow, because people will say, oh, if the government likes Ripple, other people are like, wait, what about Ethereum? So I think it just grows awareness for it.
I think one of the Twinklevoss twins tweeted a comment that kind of struck me as a history person. Said like their government is the separation of church and state, and that crypto is the separation of money and state.
Probably state and bank, maybe.
And I love that, because I think another part is that has been interesting and a little bit of a challenge to kind of get my like a bad habit to break, is to stop thinking about things in terms of US dollars and to start thinking about things in terms of like percentage of Bitcoin or percentage of these other currencies. And so when you compare the pairs, there's a lot more lessons to be learned when you're comparing two cryptocurrencies together, rather than always looking at it against the US dollar. Yeah. And so I think that's probably the biggest paradigm shift for me, is to just to de-link that and then just to realize, like, and you start to have thoughts that you're like, well, is there a point where I don't actually make any US dollars anymore to pay US dollars in taxes because I'm receiving, doing all my transactions and everything I do within an off the grid kind of cryptocurrency transaction thing. So, like, there's no one collecting taxes on me anymore. So, does that just collapse the entire state? Are they no longer able to, which have power over the people because, like, we don't pay them their, they made up funny money anymore?
I would think that
take a long way. It'll take a long time, but
yeah. No, I think I wouldn't think it would necessarily have to collapse a state or a government. I do hope that this cryptocurrency brings less corruption in government, meaning, which may not be fully possible. Like, but anyway, so let's go with a cryptocurrency for let's start small and grow big. Maybe I like the idea of thinking. Let's go with a village. If you had a village a town of people, and they started buying everything with cryptocurrency, get paid in cryptocurrency, and say the electricity, they pay their utilities with cryptocurrency. So let's say this cryptocurrency is I don't know. What should we call this coin? Let's call it town coin. So town coin, one town coin, you could buy a freaking Snickers bar, and then that probably means 20 town coins. You could buy a cup, or 15 or something, whatever. So then I think with that town coin, the government can still tax it, because with this blockchain, if you do a platform coin like Ethereum, all those wallets, you could see the transactions coming in and out. You just don't know exactly who it is, but it should be all taxable. So
I suppose have you declared your, like, the transactions that you hit and how much you receive from those transactions, then you can declare the value and then a tax based on that value. So
yeah,
you still see it being done, but you could also see it being, like, kind of off the grid if the state didn't control the energy company. If there were lots and lots and lots of energy companies and they were all providing energy to the town, and a few of us could have a conversation in the back room, and it could be like, hey, here's some crypto, you give me some energy, don't worry.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of made me think when you say consensus of truth and having all this, it kind of reminds me of, like, the invention of the gun. And if you think about before the gun was around, it was really the biggest and strongest leader who could dominate those who are smaller would be the person who's going to control things. Even if they are morally right or not, they are the biggest and the baddest, and that's it. But the gun made the short guy just as powerful as the big guy, right? And so in a strange way, it kind of makes everyone have the same playing field. Exactly. Yep. Keep everybody honest, keep everybody the same thing. Like, you have a gun, I have a gun. Well, then I'm not going to talk shit to you because you could shoot me. But you're not going to talk shit to me because I could shoot you too.
Yeah.
And so it keeps the playing field and keeps us both honest, because we know there's risks if you don't play fair. And so that's a little thing of, like, it seems like it's so, like, next level awesome, because it really does take away all those bias and all that. You can fleece me. Not anymore.
With the mining servers being the sheriffs, the mining servers are kind of the sheriffs, and the mining servers, it's in their own interest to work with the system normally. I guess I can't think of a scenario where you would want a cryptocurrency where the sheriff starts to take over all the towns. Like, for example, the mining servers get a fee when they work with the system. If someone were to try to spend, okay, so say there's 1 million mining servers on that network. To hack that system, you have to almost put up 2 million mining servers proof of work, you need around, they say around 51% attack, which I don't, the numbers are kind of fuzzy, the theoretical numbers, we don't know if that's true, but let's say 51%. A million mining servers. 2 million. Oh, that means you have to put up a million and, sorry, you have to put up 1,000,001 mining servers. Because you then will have 51%, and then you could start hacking the transactions to, when you have 51%, you could tell your 51% miners to all agree on one transaction, and that is the record of truth. But if someone has the money to buy 1,000,000 mining servers, they're better off either buying that coin or buying the 1,000,000 mining servers and putting it together. They will mine more cryptocurrency, and they will benefit more by working with the system than by trying to attack and hurt the system. So this is a paradigm shift even on that. This is a system where I have yet to really see a way that it behooves a big entity to hurt the system. Little people that hack, like say, there's been exchanges with Mt. Gox in the past. Mt. Gox could have been an inside job, so that's still a good example. Mt. Gox had a shitload of money of cryptocurrency, and somebody supposedly took the private keys to it and ran. That was a big entity that had a lot of money. But to some degree, you could say if they would have just kept their money, if they would have kept their business going legally and not stealing people's money, they would have more money now than they did how much they took back then. So it's a huge paradigm shift to say, yeah, it's better to work with the system than against it.
Do you think the same kind of effect from Bitcoin could happen to Ethereum, in that it is not really feasible for us to think about things in 0.000027? Bitcoin is the price of a Snickers bar. That doesn't really give me any sense of how much this is. So do you think Ethereum could be almost the same way? Like, it'll be hard to think about how like in percentages and 1,000th or 10,000th of a coin is something that is reasonable to spend as the people's coin. It almost seems like if gold is the store of value, Ethereum is positioning itself to be the silver. And it's a good store of value as well, but at the end of the day, it falls for the same problems. It doesn't do the like daily, everyday, like average common things. So, is there another coin that is kind of going to be this, like, going people's currency, or do you just see it as, instead of one kind of main, there are many, many coins for different applications across whatever is important for you, your personal economy?
They have stable coins. So there's Tether, there's USD coin, which is pegged to the US dollar.
Uh-huh.
I see a usage behind it, because I completely agree with you. I don't know. The human mind, like you said, just can't grasp. Yeah, I can't grasp it. Try to buy a candy bar.
Not approachable or palatable. We can't put on a palate and be able to chew on it.
Yeah. I wonder. I don't know. I'm going to speak off. I'm going to speak an idea I haven't even out yet. So let's see where this goes. I wonder if you do a country coin. Every country has its own coin. USD has a coin. Africa has a coin. Well, whatever country in Africa has a coin. Germany has a coin. Japan has a coin. And all you're doing with Ethereum at that point is you're just going to say, well, this cup costs $13 worth of Ethereum. Maybe that country, if you buy, maybe the government will subsidize something. Say corn. The government subsidizes corn. Maybe the government will say, well, you could buy a pound of corn for I don't even know the going price for $4. But if you buy with Ethereum, it's $5 or something. So I kind of see Ethereum. I don't think we have to. I think in the long run, I theorize it will blend into a way that's more palatable to humans. So there will probably be some type of stable coin for each country. Maybe that's what I'm guessing. But I hope what you said earlier as actually becomes somehow we figure something out. Oh shit! Actually, this goes to my idea of plateaus. I have a theory that eventually we'll get so much money in the system, it'll plateau. So right now, it's a freaking roller coaster, man.
Yeah.
But we're probably dealing with one analyst recently said in the last week that there's probably only about a million actual cryptocurrency users worldwide, holders. That's really small. A million users out of 11 billion people.
Yeah, that's very small.
And that 1 billion is probably only putting in 1 to 5% of their liquid assets into it.
Right.
So we're a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. So right now it's a roller coaster, but once you get enough money in, I think it's going to plateau. I theorize it's going to plateau.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, once it plateaus, but we're
not even in, we're fractions of a fraction. So you're going to have to say that it's got to be
20, 30 years.
It's a tipping point, right? It's got to be a tipping point of enough people gaining attention. And then when it gains I'm not even sure if it's majority, but it's enough to have that tipping point. And if those people all rush to the market, there's your plateau.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would say
once the plateau
becomes secure enough that it's not speculative.
Yeah.
There's enough money in the system where it can be stabilized at here and not wildly shoot up and down.
Yeah.
So with that theory being inevitability, and I would certainly think we have a long time to go still, at least this decade. With these, like the shit coins that exist now that people call them, these are new projects that are kind of coming around.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, sure.
Did you buy Dogecoin?
We're seeing. I have some Dogecoin.
Okay.
I have some Dogecoin. We could talk about that a little bit further too, because Elon Musk made a tweet yesterday about how there are like 9 whales that own 46% of the coin, and he's like, this concentration of these 9 people, if they all sell, then they'll get my full support, because it'll finally be something that the people can all have a fair shot at, rather than the big whales acting like hedge funds and being able to push the market in different ways. That's, I guess, what he was trying to say, is that if those whales can sell, then I'll get behind it and fully support it. And it was interesting to see, you can like look up the public addresses of these 9 or 10 coin holders and see, how many coins they have, and then also their public address. And so I thought that was interesting. I'm glad you described it earlier about the private and public, because when I saw their address, I was like, hey, can I just hack this? Like, isn't there a way for me to take these coins? But now that I know there's a private one as well, that makes a lot more sense. So anyway, seeing that, it was like, oh, wow, these whales own like half of it. And I can see how that's really not beneficial for a currency to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So I'm about even money, I guess, on Dogecoin. I haven't lost anything. I haven't really gained anything, but I'm about even money where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think with the categories, it's still probably worth it to just hold Doge. If you got it, then if you're capable of holding it, it's probably worth holding.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think what happened, and what because apparently you said that the whales are selling. That there's some people said they're selling, not in huge amounts, but they are selling. So I don't really know, but if it gets his support, and I know he's a big driver of things, so yeah, it could be. It's a little bit on the speculative side. It doesn't really have any value. I don't want to hold it forever. Yeah. But if it can be, I can ride on this bull run, I guess, throughout this year, maybe I can look in like September, October, and then get out and make a nice gain. Yeah. And so, but there's others, these other like small projects that are in, like just like 3 cents, 5 cents, or even in a fraction of cents, that are very risky. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it almost seems like this could be those opportunities to get in. Like if you were trying to invest in 2016 for the first time, and and you were hoping to hold something for 5 years and then have your initial investment be worth so much more because that coin finally matured to be something that people hold value in. It obviously is not going to be as much as the ones that have gone on their previous runs. It'll still be, scaled down.
I would probably disagree with that, but
nice. Okay, good. That's even better for what I would think then. Do you think that they're going to try to find an evenness amongst them, or that there's?
I think
different gains and different ways, different things.
I think, like, say, like if Ethereum gets its proof of stake working well, Ethereum 2.0, and how the news, how people take to it. I see Ethereum surpassing Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin to me is like Friendster. Do you remember Friendster? MySpace before Facebook?
Yeah.
So I kind of hope Ethereum 2.0 is Facebook in that analogy. So it's going to far surpass Bitcoin, I hope. I could be wrong. It might be Cardano. It might be Monero. I don't see a privacy coin being the big one. I think it's going to be a platform coin, in my opinion. Platform coin is something that has a programming layer on it that has smart contracts that can facilitate many things. As for the price thing, because of that plateau analogy or that plateau mentioned earlier, I mean, man, I forget the numbers. Is it $75 trillion in, is it M1 or M2 money? So I think $75 trillion, even if we get a fraction of that into cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency being the price of the coin is the price of the last bought coin. So so if the last coin of Ethereum hits $2,000, that means every coin in it is worth $2,000. But that's not really true, because as people sell,
the value will go down.
Yeah, but it's funky because if you get, like, I think if you got $75 trillion into that $2,000 value would skyrocket to, like,
right.
I don't know. I think like 10 million a coin. It'd be some weird. It would be an astronomical amount that it almost doesn't make sense to normal humans. But mathematically, every dollar that goes in brings the price almost 10x. Not quite. Not really. It's just the amount that goes in pumps up the price, and the price that gets pumped is multiplied by the amount of coin in there. So it's a weird multiply equation that doesn't make sense to the most humans.
It is hard to fathom. It's outside the normal pattern of thinking.
Yeah,
so it's hard to conceptualize.
Yeah, so I'm not sure of your question, and I kind of thought your next question was going to be, so say there's Ethereum at like almost 1,800 a coin right now, and then maybe your question was thinking, should you look at these smaller coins at 5 cents? It's really, which one do you think is going to have the biggest X potential? If Ethereum hits a parabolic launch from ETH 2.0 in 1 or 3 years, and that goes 400%, and this other 5 cent one goes up to $1, but that's only 20x compared to this. So it's a tough. This predictions and stuff things that we can't predict, and we just have to we have to use our best educated guess.
I suppose it's helpful to decouple from the concept of, like, if I own lots and lots of coins and those go up to something, then that's going to be it's like you get emotional reaction if you have 100,000 of a coin and they're worth a nickel, and then you're like, oh, right, they all go to $1, then that's going to be that amount of money. What if they go to $10? Oh, then I have that amount of money. Oh, okay, it's great. But I think it's much more valuable, like you say, to not think about the number of coins that you can
allocate,
but it's about the value of those coins and the gaining of it. So you might have only had your, let's say, $5,000 investment now be worth $400,000 versus what you thought was a really good thing if you just got to 100,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's totally it.
That's the part where it's like, maybe that's the argument in the other way against why it's not helpful to only think in things of terms as fractions of Bitcoins, But at the same time, maybe it's not so much of a disadvantage because it really is in just in the X's. It's in the values and the percentage of gains.
Yeah.
If you only own like a tenth of a Bitcoin, which would only thing in my mind is kind of the new attainable Bitcoin is not a full Bitcoin, but maybe a tenth of a Bitcoin. If you can get a tenth of a Bitcoin, okay, great. Now you have a tenth, all right? Maybe a second tenth, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
So maybe that's a new way to think about it rather than thinking, oh, well, never one, but maybe a tenth of one, or start to pile those, and that I think could be more valuable.
Yeah, I've always actually the way for whatever I've talked about that concept with other people where owning a tenth and whatnot. But the way I guess right now I'm thinking, I've always looked at it as if I bought in $500 with Bitcoin, I just think of it as $500 of Bitcoin. I actually don't really think of it as 1% of one Bitcoin. I never. So when I see that $500 go up to $600 to $700, I just think of it like that.
Right. You spoke earlier about how there's sophisticated developers who are willing to share their information with you and to teach you, and you thought that was just like really generous of them to be able to kind of step down and help everybody else. I've noticed that too, like with the Twitter pages I've followed, and I've tried to ask some questions. I've gotten direct messaging from these people to say, if you have any questions, let me show you what I do. This is what I've done. This is the way I think of it. And it's just been amazing to see how these strangers from around the world who don't know this person. I don't come saying that I'm a crypto investor. I'm a sommelier, right? So here's a sommelier on like a crypto page going, hey guys, what does this mean? And instead of going, you don't belong here, they go, dude, this is what I do. Let me show you what's up. And there's this one guy who was trying to teach me, I guess, his methods of how he approaches swing trading. And does the swing trading with the V chain.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the token for this is called the VThor.
Oh, I don't know enough. But yeah, I don't. Okay.
Okay. So apparently, if you own enough of the VET, it produces VThor somehow. Extracts it, you make it. I'm not sure. You mine it. I don't know what happens. But he says that there is a price coupling between the two. That because the VThor is produced from the V chain, that when he notices there's like a ratio that he's looking before, if you divide the value of V chain into VThor, if it's less than 1%, he knows that the VThor is overvalued. So he'll trade in his V chain, a small percentage of it, and buy VThor, waiting for VThor to go up a little bit higher. Then we'll trade back in the VThor back for the V chain. And then if it switches, he does the opposite.
Yeah.
And he said that he does about like 80% of his investment is in V chain, and the 20% he uses for day trading. And that every one of his paychecks, he takes a little bit of money and puts it right in, but then also uses this 20% to try to gain some additional ones as he goes through it. So he's not like a day trader by trade, but he just does this to gain extra coins with what he thinks is valuable. And so it's been helpful for him to do that. And so I said, well, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with that quite yet. But when I start looking at these ratios, I'm going to start looking at these price comparison ratios. And if I see that this ratio looks undervalued, I'm going to check in with them and say, hey, man, I think I might try to trade in, maybe $500 worth of this thing just to go at it a couple times. So
yeah, that's the best thing to do. Just try what you could disposable income.
What you could lose.
Yep, like 100, $500, whatever.
I mean, I'm sure you probably went through this yourself, is that you probably had the year one was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm going to learn and figure things out, make a few mistakes, and then hopefully I don't lose my shirt. And then year two, you probably got a little bit more sophisticated, and so on and so forth, year 3, 4, 5. And so I just think that's where I'm at. I'm just kind of, all right, I'm just trying not to lose my shirt. I don't want to get too risk out there. But I do hear this buzz. It's altcoin season. All my coins are going up except for Dogecoin. It's just staying where it's at. But I put some money into that Harmony one. I bought 100,000 coins at like 1 cent each, and now they're almost 4 cents each.
Oh, awesome!
So that's a good return.
Yeah.
And then for the V chain, I bought like 30,000 at 3 cents, and now it's 5.5 cents.
Yeah.
Or in like the V Thor, I bought at 0.00125 a coin, and I bought 300,000 of them, and now there's 7/10 of a coin. So that's been a huge drive. But that one is wildly speculative, where it goes up and down. So I look at my portfolio and I'm like, oh, it's 10 grand. That's awesome. And then like an hour later, it's 8,400. What the hell is this? So it's like way big, wild. So I'm just going to try to pay attention to that a little closer, and maybe I can get some extra value with the way this guy does it. But yeah, I think so far I've got I got some Bitcoin that I put on the Coinbase. When I first started, I want to ask you more about wallets too, because I have all of these investments on the exchanges, and I've heard people say that if you're a holder, you want to take the crypto off of these exchanges onto your wallet so it's secure with you.
Yep.
And then you want to hold it, and then when you want to sell it, what do you put it back on the exchange and then you trade it back for dollars? Is that how it works?
Yep, exactly. So say Coinbase, Coinbase has like a wallet for you, which has a public key. When you want to withdraw, you provide your public key from your wallet. I'll send it to your wallet. You later on, if you want to send it back, you need your private key to your wallet to sign the transaction to send it back to that wallet in Coinbase. The reason for that, so that if something were to happen to Coinbase, if they wanted to run with your money or whatever, they have access to it. So as long as you have if it's in your wallet, your private key, nobody could do anything with it. Virtually no one could do anything with it.
And is that what you do?
I suggest it sounds like you're in a point where I would at least suggest they have Treasure thumb drive wallets where it holds your private key in there. So I kind of describe it in about 3 steps. On the exchange, when you start out, less than whatever you're comfortable having on exchange. I would say less for most people. I would say most. I'm trying to think of there's poor people. Well, there's people with a lot less money. There's people that have more.
Yeah.
I would say around less than 5,000 or less than 1,000. Go ahead, put it on the exchange. Maybe less than 1,000 on the exchange. Once you approach 1,000, 5,000, maybe up to 10,000. Do the Treasure, or there's other. I don't know the names of it. I fully skipped to the third one just for the heck of it. I didn't even do the second step. So the USB drive, that's a fantastic step. The second step, get it onto your hard drive on a thumb drive wallet. Third step, get it into an offline wallet where you either print it on paper or on metal. So after, I would say $5,000 or $10,000, if you got more than that, start thinking about doing an offline wallet. So that's you get the private key on a piece of paper or on metal, or you have it printed on metal and you store it somewhere. Once you get over 10,000, I suggest doing the separated wallets, a separated wallet. So meaning you print it on like 3 or 5 metal cards. So that's waterproof, fireproof, electric proof. A metal thing, you punch in letters to your on those little cards. You get like 4 of them, and you need to get 3 out of 4 to make your key. So you put like 1/4. 1, 2, 3. You get 1/3 of the key on one key, 1/3 of the key on another key, 1/3 of the key on another key, and 1/3 on another as a backup. And you put it in 4 different places, remote places.
Wow.
So it depends. I mean, if you have over 10 grand in it, it's probably worth putting in that effort, in my opinion.
Interesting.
And if you want help with that, I'll totally help you out.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit outside of I'm like, it's what? It's gonna where?
Yeah.
And And then, so how easy is it to then put it back onto the exchange? And then, I can understand how to get it back into your actual debit account or whatever. But
there's
so, is that process just the inverse?
It is the inverse. There's one step in there that I kind of left out. To get it on an offline wallet, normally, like I know the one, like Ethereum. If you have an offline Ethereum wallet, you usually use myetherwallet.com, and you could download an offline version of that, so you make sure you're not connected to the internet if you want to be super secure. That website has a built-in wallet feature that talks to the blockchain. So you could create your wallet, get your private key, all offline, and then when you want to send a transaction, you could also use that. So that My Ether wallet is you could either do that, or there's apps on Android or Apple that act like a My Ether wallet. So yeah, the inverse would be the inverse. On My Ether wallet, you plug in your private key, how much coin you want to send to which address, and then it sends a transaction out to the ether, to the world, and then the mining servers execute it and then send that money to Coinbase, back to Coinbase for you.
Have you ever purchased anything with cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I have, but it was oddly a lame. I guess the lame conclusion of the story is I only bought it because I just wanted to say I bought something with cryptocurrency. Okay. At the current state of cryptocurrency, the prices are going up so much, and I see so much more possible adoption.
Yeah, it's better to trade your dollars for crypto.
Yeah. It's better. Yeah, it's better to trade your dollar for crypto right now than to spend crypto.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. It was just interesting working on Andiamo like I used to, and have people buy things in crypto. And I was just thinking, at what point do you think we get to a point when I guess it's when that plateau happens, right? I guess it's like when there's enough market integration and that the price is no longer speculative. It's a safe asset. So you can feel safe about trading these coins back in for goods and services because they're at a fair value. That's not going to go wildly speculative.
I feel to get to that plateau, I theorize maybe some government will have to accept that we will use it for paychecks and paying utilities. I kind of feel like those are two steps in there, and unfortunately, separating government and the bank is something that they are going to fight, I believe, till the end, because they love printing money. If they have cryptocurrency, they can't print. So
right.
For cryptocurrency, it seems like an uphill battle on that front. But I think this genie's out of the bottle, and too many people are starting to see the amazing technology, the amazing innovation that this has. So I think adoption is inevitable, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think so too. I had an old couple at the restaurant the other night, and I was telling them the dinner special, and it was an all-inclusive one where it came with salads and sides and the whole thing, and it was for $185, and it was a meal for two to share. And so, in my mind, that was a pretty good deal for what we're offering. I thought it was quite a bit. And then the old guy was like, all right, we'll think about it. Thanks. And as I turned around, I could hear him go, $185. Wow, that's a lot of money. And then I started to think about it. Well, it's not if you think of it as some 0.0000127 bitcoins, right? And so I walked away thinking like, all right, these old people are going to get fleeced if all of their money is stored in cash.
Yeah,
and they might have some stores of value that are the old paradigm that the new paradigm might not trade in their money for.
Yeah.
There's digital art now. There's like NFTs that people want to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I care about the art that's hanging on your wall. It doesn't matter to me as much. So if you think that you're going to trade in your Picassos someday for some cryptocurrency kid that wants to pay for it for full value, I don't know if that's going to happen. So I just wonder if there's a point where you think the old generation might get completely fleeced. The new generation is setting themselves up to be the strength. But then there's this whole middle road of people who are ignorant, who are also going to miss out on it too. And it just makes me think about like who is going to be the next like money drivers in the future, and then who are the old money paradigm is going to collapse and just fall away?
I theorize it wouldn't be exactly.
It's gradual.
I view cryptocurrency as it's a win-win for all. Even that old person that jumps in, just say what if? Say he has that old person, he's retired, maybe he has $300,000 in money, investments and or cash in the bank. That 300,000 he could slowly convert to cryptocurrency. It doesn't lose its value. It's still 300,000. So that's where I think that maybe that's where where my theory, I might disagree, where that 300,000 will still have some value. Now maybe you're right. If the US government were to start having some economic problems and start printing money like crazy, which oddly I think they printed 43% last year.
I mean, it's the trend is to do more. It's not to do less.
I theorize that old person wouldn't really lose out too much. I theorize. I might. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I look at it as a comparison to getting into the market today versus getting into the market 5 years from now versus 10 years from now versus 15 from now. So the longer you wait, the less your value is worth.
Yeah, that's true. But that could be said about anything though. Say if that guy would have invested in Tesla, he would have been better off, or if he would have invested in maybe Amazon, I don't know.
True.
So it's tough to say because I mean we could be wrong. Maybe cryptocurrency is going to blow up in the bad way.
Yeah, all these are joke meme coins, and you guys are just sitting around carrying what a metal car with some punches on it. Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice job, dude. Yeah, real nice. You're like okay. It's I have this other guy that lives on the street, became the good buddy of ours during the shutdown during quarantine because he built a bar inside of his house, like a full English pub in his house. And so he's an older guy. He's a bartender at the airport. And I told him that I'm going to start investing in cryptocurrency. And he was like, I don't understand this. I don't get it. I'll never get it. And I started to break down like my novice explanation of blockchain and the whole thing with mining. And he's like, so what? So what? Who cares? That does nothing for me. I don't understand that. Who cares? And I was like, well, okay, I get it. I understand how it's hard for you to fathom, but at the same time, this is moving in a direction, and if you don't step back and look that it's gaining momentum, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool if you don't realize it's gaining momentum. And if you, as I'm a fool for not staying in 2013, I'm a fool for not looking at it again in 2016 and 17. I'm a fool for looking at it back in January when it was down, in pennies. I'm a fool for all these things. But now that I'm finally here, I can now look at it and go, there's still plenty of opportunities.
Yes.
There's plenty of opportunities, and I don't have the FOMO, I don't have the fear of missing out on all these opportunities that were before me. I just know I'll never be as rich as the Twinklevoss twins. Okay, that's fine. I was never going to be as rich as the Koch brothers anyway, so it's fine. But as long as I can eventually become, more financially free and have and just improve the quality of my life, that's what I hope to do.
Yeah, on some of those people, when they say that, they're like, well, cryptocurrency doesn't mean anything to me, or they don't care. I just tell them, well, if we were in 1995 right now and I told you, hey, there's stock of Google, would you buy?
Yeah, right.
And then if right then in 1995 I told you, hey, I think Google is going to go pretty big in 15, 20 years, really, really big, would you buy? That's where I think cryptocurrency is. It's pretty similar to that.
Yeah.
But even almost worse because, even better because cryptocurrency is decentralized. It's innovative. It's a paradigm shift on everything we've done. One of the best quotes I think I've heard is that cryptocurrency is the pinnacle of the internet. Cryptocurrency is the best of the internet. It's
nice.
All this work that has gone into the internet, the cryptocurrency may be the key.
Yeah.
So we hit 3 hours, but there's 6 questions I'm supposed to ask you. So
okay.
Let's see if we could blast through those quickly, and I'll actually remove 2 of the questions. 3 of the questions. I'll remove 3. Okay, what daily habits do you have that greatly improve your life?
what daily habits do I have that greatly improve my life? Well, I think the answer is within the question, is that in order to um, achieve goals, you have to maintain habits, so that if you have the same habitual pattern, you can remove your thoughts from having to execute those daily tasks. If you can remove your ability to actively think about those things, you are free to now maybe use that extra brain power to accomplish goals. Where if you're focusing on a daily pattern that changes, you have to actively think about each and every day, and you don't have the extra power to think about how to achieve your goals. So I think staying habitual and having good patterns for yourself is really helpful for me in which to accomplish my goals, and to not get behind. I was traditionally a procrastinator, but when I started to focus on this new way of organizing myself, I get things done as soon as they're on my plate. I don't wait till the last minute anymore. Everything is done as soon as I can, and I just stay ahead of everything. And as long as I keep doing that in a really, like in a habitual sense, it helps me achieve my goals, and I run circles around almost everybody.
Nice. Next question. What's the biggest problem nationally or globally, and what should humans do to fix it?
This is a video all in itself, right? This is a 3-hour question all by itself. So this is I love to play devil's advocate. I love to play the other side of the coin. I'm always putting myself in other people's shoes. So a question the question like this for me is quite daunting, because I envision variables on all sides of the other coin, right? So probably the big thing I think that people are in is there's a lot of pain, and hurt people, they hurt people. And so we in society, there's a lot of hurt. And so we hurt each other a lot. And we don't realize that we're hurting each other. It's just that we're in pain. And this is how we, we spread empathy or share our experience with others, is that it's through our own experience. And if it's a painful one, then we're going to share a painful kind of thing. And that's a hard cycle to break out of. It's a hard cycle to not think of yourself as a victim when you feel like you've been done wrong. And I think if we can just change our mindset in society to break from this, oh, boo-hoo me, oh, poor me, I'm without, I don't have this, I'm not as great as they'll ever be, so therefore I can't try. Each person's journey is completely their own. And I've been in fault of this, of comparing my own progress to other people's progress, and then being discouraged because I might not have the same rate of achievement as they've done. And
yep,
so
I do that all the time.
Yeah, I really think it's important to step back and to realize that it's your journey. Be just humble and thankful for every day, and just to try to approach each person as if, how can I leave this situation much better than I found it? I think us as stewards of the earth, we are not leaving it much better than what we found it. A sommelier, the definition is a wine steward. And so I'm technically a steward of the wine program, and I would like to say that when I leave this program, I will leave it in better place than what it was when I first got there. And I can confidently say that today. If I show you the wine list from 4 years ago to where we are today, it is night and day, and I'm so proud of it. So I think that's the thing. Is like, just make sure that you, for whatever you're going to do it well, and to leave it better off than you found it.
Awesome. I like that. Think of at least one person that you know of personally that should do this conversation with me. Call them out.
Whew. I'm gonna have to think on this for a second. I keep a very like a tight network of, I guess, of people that I stay in contact with. Las Vegas is an interesting place.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
the only place I've ever lived where you don't give your trust immediately up. There is this wall that gets put up about, I need to find out what you are and your intentions are before I let my guard down. And it's in dating, it's in meeting new people, it's making friends. It's just through the population here. There's this like scam artists are everywhere. So you
Yeah.
have to put up this wall to kind of prevent yourself from being hurt. It's like a defense mechanism. But of all the places I've ever lived, I've never had to do that. It's always been that you can give yourself completely fully, and then when someone shows you they don't deserve it, then you can go find someone else. You don't have to be worried about being completely burned. In
Yeah.
Las Vegas, you get kind of burned pretty quick. So my network of friends are all sommeliers, are
Okay.
all other people in the wine industry.
Okay.
So that's mainly who I converse with. I'm trying to think who would be good for your channel and who'd be able to help out in a positive way. I suppose I could suggest also someone in the industry, but perhaps that works at a distributorship.
Okay.
That did it from the wholesale side of things, rather than from the retail side of things. So you can see on their perspective, what's it like to manage contracts with wineries? What's it like to keep inventory up? What's it like to keep restaurants happy? What's it like in which to have to sell wine to wine buyers at restaurants? And then, I don't know if there's any helpful hints that they have. Because everybody that works at a wine distributor generally has worked at a restaurant before. So the natural progression for my career is to stop doing this and eventually go to work for a distributorship.
Oh.
And then to be a salesman to go into to restaurants and then try to talk to wine buyers about how I think that they can buy wine from me to improve their program. Right? So eventually, the more and more professional you get and the more in tune you get, the less that you want to talk with the novices.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's
That's
like
probably every career.
Yeah, exactly. You're just on this level, and you don't have as much of the patience anymore to try to explain things on the bottom level. Sure, like you're willing to do it, you want to help people, but to do it every time and to never get any of this mid-level conversation, it becomes all right. This is enough. So eventually, you want to talk to like just people who are in the wine industry, because that's your passion, that's your craft, wine, right? So I would think someone who's a little bit in the deeper scale that side. Someone that comes to mind is my friend Joan. Joan is her name, and she was been my sales rep for Breakthrough Beverage here in Nevada for since day one that I started. And but she was just an incredible person that worked at this distributorship, and I think she would have such really good insight.
Awesome.
And,
awesome.
Yeah. So if you want, I can introduce you to her.
Awesome. Okay. Last question. Tell me briefly about what this conversation was like. If you've done a podcast or interview before, you could describe the biggest difference. I may use this as an answer in a video collage for new potential guests.
Sure. So this is my first podcast, the first kind of interview video Zoom call thing like this that's going to be posted on the internet. Really excited to do it. I wanted to do this kind of thing during the shutdown, and actually bought all this equipment to be able to do it. So I'm able to do this today with you because I had the foresight of thinking this might happen someday. So, man,
awesome.
Really, how fun this is. Really, how fun is this to not only connect with you, which you're very easy to talk to, a very approachable kind of person, which is super helpful. You want people to just be comfortable and to reveal what they're passionate about, and without any concern of any judgment or any of these things. And so it's very freeing. It's very easy. I'm in my home office. This is great. I'm very comfortable. It's been fun. I really had a good time, and I look forward to doing this thing. Again, I hope to maybe start my own maybe YouTube channel, and maybe I can start talking to guests more in depthly about some of these topics that we kind of touched on in different segments of this talk.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because there's a world of information, and if I can help people, one, better understand, two, make better decisions for themselves, and then three, just increase the pleasurability of your life, because that's really what it's all about. We're only here for a short period of time. None of us are getting out of this thing alive, so we might as well enjoy it every single day.
Yeah.
And so that's really my goal. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Carl, it was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully I'll have you again on sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gavin. It was a great time. Thanks for everything.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.